Yo, shalom to everybody watching, man. Hit that like button. You know how we rocking, man. Source Gang 7 Gang. We in the building. Genetic legacy of the E1b1b Israelites. It's time. It's time. You know what I'm saying? I think it's time too. We address this because a lot of people use a 19th, 20th century system to try to typecast individuals and categorize individuals. This black and white thing, which a sister wrote in her book. I'm trying to think of her name. Her name is Erica. She wrote in her book about the system of black and white and being a binary oppositional model, which basically has no criterion that it's based on. It has no biological basis. It's just something that was created by the minds of racist people and enforced by racist people. I want to put that out there before we get into the presentation, before we get into the material, because that type of thinking has plagued many of the individuals that watch my channel, many of the individuals that call themselves black American, African, or what have you. You use the same system that was created by racist German scientists 200 years ago, 300 years ago, what have you, Carl Linnaeus. Their system of race is still living and reverberates through your thoughts, through your opinions. And at this channel, we're very education centered, academia centered, scientifically centered. So we go back to that. What makes us the same biologically has nothing to do with your skin color or your phenotype. Phenotype is not equal genotype. So we're trying to break that mentality here on the source in dealing with a video like this, the genetic legacy of E1b1b. It's very pertinent to talk about that because you have certain individuals that have E1b1b that look white European, but guess what? If you're E1b1a, you are related to these individuals. Doesn't matter what Ron Dalton says. Ron Dalton, if you're watching, or any of your followers watching, I will debate you on this topic 3 rounds and we can put money on it. So with that being stated, I should go to Erica Coleman. That's her sister name, Erica L. Coleman. She put this in her book, and I should just open with that before I even go into the presentation, just to bring the axe to that ideological tree before we even finish, because before we even start with the actual presentation and the meat and potatoes of it. Because I believe it's pertinent while we're having these discussions of genomic data and genetics and demography of certain peoples, because a lot of our people have been polluted and tainted with the idea of racial thinking. And I believe it's done more harm to our schools of thoughts, our religious beliefs, than it has done and being constructive or beneficial to us. Especially when we're talking about connecting those individuals in Africa, people in Africa. Like I was speaking to some Somalians last night, and they have a very nasty attitude towards anything outside of Somalia. They don't care about the rest of Africa. Um, and we have people that have a nasty attitude towards North Africans, and it's disgusting. We really need to push a renaissance where we rebuild our people through science, through our biology, not through our language, not through our religions, not through our cultures, because we differ in those things. But if we can unify through science, we can see like haplogroups and our genetic similarities and relatedness. That should be the standard. And that will destroy a lot of this BS that's going on, in the world, especially dealing with what quote unquote African peoples. I know a lot of you people that makes a lot of you upset, makes a lot of you want to unsubscribe, but dislike the video. Do as you may. I don't make videos to please the inner racist inside of you. I make videos to be informative and share information, and bring us past this very destructive way of thinking known as the 5 race theory or the 5 races and based upon color. With that being stated, let me bring out Erica L. Coleman's book. And I just feel right now that this needs to be said before we move forward, because the gravity of in the opinions that are molded upon racism. So she makes something very clear. Yeah, she speaks about the one drop rule, the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. All of this stuff destroyed us. And we want to carry these same ideals, same talking points into the next century. And it's just sickening and disheartening. And that's why all of the people that are behind academia and science must band together to fight against this, because ignorance can't win if we do that. If we galvanize and we actually properly educate the youth in the next generation. All right. So today's topic is going to be on the genetic legacy of the E1b1b Israelites, but I want to touch on this point first. Right. So Erica L. Coleman's book, I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm trying to find it because this is impromptu, where she speaks about the binary system and how it's just flawed and it's based on imprecise criterion. And as a people, we have to get past that. And a lot of people are like, why do you even try? It's gonna fall on deaf ears. Well, it's just like the disciple says, right? The disciples say, in the New Testament, it tells you if a house doesn't accept you, you wipe the dust of your feet and you keep moving. I'm not here for those that don't accept me. I'm here for those that want to learn, that want to be educated and apply it. That's what I'm here for. So those that want to accept it, want to argue, you're at the wrong channel. You might want to find a channel that agrees with your standpoint. If I can't find it, I'll just move on. I'm looking for this in Erica L. Coleman book, That the Blood Stay Pure. It's been a minute since I looked at it, but I felt the need that we have to discuss this, imprecise criterion. Yeah. If I can't find it, I'll drop it. But basically, binary oppositional model where people say, well, if you're white, you can't be related to black people, and black people, if you're black, can't be related to white people, which is false when we look at biology. All right, it's going to take me too long to look that up, but that's exactly what we speak against here. And Erica L. Coleman, she touches on it on her book. Let's get right to it. Yeah, shout out to the EU290 brethren and EU290 family. Let's get it. Let's get into the presentation. And maybe in a later video, I'll deal with that imprecise criterion and trying to base people on their skin color solely. Share my screen again. Today's topic is the genetic legacy of the E1b1b Israelites. All right, let's let the show begin. All right. E1b1b, the legacy of the E3b Israelites. Anytime you see E3b, it's saying the same thing, E1b1b Israelites, right? So what connects us biologically or genetically? It's what we call a haplogroup. And for anybody that's new to the channel, a haplogroup is a genetic population group of people who share a common ancestor on the patriline or matriline. So we usually deal with the Y DNA, but sometimes we dibble and dabble with the mitochondrial DNA as well. But we're usually dealing with the patriline because ancient Israel was patrilineal. So when we're determining Israelites, we determine it on the farthest line. For example, if you open up the Bible, you go to Genesis 10, the table of nations is determined by males. It's not determined by women. It's determined by males. For example, the Ashurites come from Ashur. The Shemites come from Shem, Japhites, Japhet, Ham come from Hamites, Canaanites come from Canaan, so on and so forth. It was patrilineal, paternal lineages determine who you were. So that's the model that we use and we employ when we're discussing who are the ancient Israelites. And what connects us is a haplogroup, which is a genetic population group of people who share a common ancestor. And that's when we look at the Bible, who shares a common ancestor, who we're trying to trace back genetically. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will be the putative ancestor of the Israelites. So the Israelites by birth, the ones that will descend from these men, will have to share an haplogroup. Ancient DNA is vital because a lot of times, people base DNA on modern populations. That is erroneous because famines happens, wars happens, captivities take place, people move, agricultural expansions happen. It's so many things. Desertification, natural disasters happen where people have to move. So judging judging a people based upon modern population density and where they live today is an error because they could have moved, wars could have happened, depopulation, population replacement could have taken place, like the Yamnaya when they went to Europe and took over the ancient Europeans, just like when the Europeans went to America and killed off a lot of the indigenous tribes. That's population replacement, just like the Bantus when they replaced many of the autochthonous indigenous Africans of sub-Saharan Africa. So this happens. Population displacement and replacement happens. People move, migrate. So you can't use modern population density and try to infer that on the past. It does not work that way. And I'm going to let you hear what David Reich says in his book. We need to stop focusing on describing the veil and instead rip it away. And for this, we need ancient DNA. You have to use ancient DNA to determine who the people were during the times or close around the times when they lived. So the source is who we are and how we got here by David Reich, page number 283 and 284. Phenotypes does not define us. Like I was touching on before, I was alluding to Erica L. Coleman's book. I don't want to have to, rifle through her book right now, so we get to the point. So go straight to the data here that I have for the presentation. Phenotype does not define us. Black, white, skull shape, your morphology, how big your nose is, how small your lips, that does not define us, okay? Because even when we look at Africa, right here, it says these data show the genealogical connections of substantial numbers of males from all regions of Africa, irrespective of phenotype. For example, the Moroccans are primarily E1b1b, but a lot of them will have lighter skin, loose curl pattern. Their face is more, their craniology is more Caucasoid or Caucasian, but they are related to us because they share that same haplogroup E. So irrespective of how they look, they're related to you. This goes against everything you were taught because you were taught to focus on looks. That's how we determine race here in North America. You determine it based on how someone looks. And then when you have a child with a white woman or a mixed ancestry, now you want to say, well, that child ain't black. That child ain't none of us. That don't make any damn sense. His father, he has the DNA of his father. Just like Drake's son, he has the white chromosome of his father. That did not erase. That did not magically disappear. His phenotype does not define him. Same thing with Blake Griffin. Same thing with these Moroccans, the North Africans. The phenotype does not define them. It's their genotype. It's their haplotype. Because what is a haplogroup? A group of individuals that share a common ancestor. And that's how we determine who's an Israelite. Not of their skin color, not the size of their nose, not the texture of their hair. So I'm going to read it again. These data show genealogical connections of substantial numbers of males from all regions of Africa, irrespective of phenotype. And this book is by Ibrahim Muntazer, which is a Sudanese geneticist, right? Page number 16 on the genetics of African populations. The next quote from the same book on page 15 said, "It is indeed ironic that those with what can be called the stereotypes African facial morphology and very dark skin are precisely those with the European haplogroup, while others who phenotypically more resemble Europeans are often predominantly of the E haplogroup." So you have people that look like European males in the E haplogroup, right? This is a scientific fact. That means we share a common ancestor with people you would call white or European. This is just fact. But something inside of you is fighting you. The Blumenbach theory is fighting you because you want to hold on to the same thing that has been destroying us and discrediting us as a people. The color of your skin. When the color of your skin, your phenotype, does not define who you are. Now, let's deal with the putative origins of the Israelites and the model that we here at the source, well, I at the source, subscribes to. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could have had the EP2 marker. This would mean the subsequent generations after Jacob could have later divulged into both E1b1a and E1b1b through rapid radiation and population boom. So as you can see on the graph that I created, the initial founding fathers of Israel would be EP2 or E1b1, as some may recognize it as. And that would their children that came after them, the 12 tribes, would have had EP2. Oh, let me go back. And then they would have later divulged to E3b, E3a, maybe in Egypt when we started to expand and become numerous, according to the narrative. Many of those EP2s begin to mutate and become E3b and E3a, which is E1b1b and E1b1a. So this is how I teach it. I don't teach one or the other. I believe that we both came from the same stock as E1b1a, E1b1b. This is the model that I subscribe to. Now let's deal with E1b1b1 origin. E1b1 probably evolved either in Northeast Africa or the Near East, and then expanded to the West, both north and south of the Mediterranean Sea. And this is isogg.org. Okay, why DNA haplogroup E and its subclades 2010. So as we see that these people have a connection to the Levant, they have a connection to the Middle East. We can infer that through the migratory data and demographic data of E1b1b. Okay? And that's from the International Standard of Genetics. All right? Moving forward. E3b, again, E3b is just another way of saying and classifying E1b1b. Is believed to have evolved in the Middle East before spreading into the Mediterranean during the Pleistocene Neolithic expansion, found in many Arab populations in areas around the Mediterranean, in East and North Africa, particularly among the Berbers, and in Southeastern Europe. And that's from Abraham's Children by John Entine, page number 266 and 267. So again, we can see that E1b1b has a connection to the Middle East. E3b represents Proto-Afro-Asiatic. At another level, the geographical congruence is striking for the language families and Y lineages. Essentially, M35 lineages are distributed from the Horn of Africa down the Nile Valley and over to the Maghreb, with a spur in the Levant/Near East. Although not discussed here, M35 as M35/78 also is found in the Aegean and Balkans, but it is important to reiterate that the origin of M35 is in East Africa. These data are potentially useful in exploring questions about the locale of the earliest populations speaking earliest stages of Afro-Asiatic. To the degree that any such undertaking of any language family is possible, M35 clades predominate based on current data and core group of Afro-Asiatic speakers. So E1b1b predominates the speakers of Afro-asiatic languages. And here's the languages: Cushitic, Egyptian, and Berber. There are some data Omotic that are similar in having high M35 frequencies, greater than 50%. And some of the ancient lineages, but the only published sample known to the author has a mere 12 individuals. So E1b1b is connected to the Middle East, and they're connected to the Proto-Afro-Asiatic speakers. Moving on, in the book In Hot Pursuit of Language and Prehistory, John D. Bankston, pages 9 through 12, it says, the presence of Semitic in the Near East might be explained as follows. Early pre-Proto-Semitic speakers, a unit of undifferentiated Boer-Afrasians and Etherets conception, would have migrated into Syro-Palestine before the Neolithic, being taken there by M35 bearers, specifically EM35/78, and adopted by populations bearing M89 lineages. So the Proto-Afro-Asiatic, the Proto-Semite people would have been carried into the Levant and Syro-Palestine by E1b1b bearers. And later, this culture or language would have been adopted by M89 lineages. That's your haplogroup T's, your haplogroup J's, your haplogroup, anything that comes from FM89, right? G, H, I, J, P, so on and so forth. They adopted it from those that had E markers. They adopted Semitic language and culture from those that had E markers. I'm going to say it one more time. They adopted it. They're not the originators. The originators would have had E markers. They would have had E markers. And this, speaking to the title, EM35, E1b1b is being invoked here in John D. Bankston's work. The E3b coenum, right? One thing is clear. The CMH cannot definitively prove the existence of a single founding father for the Jewish priesthood. That alone confirmed that he was Aaron. If it is primarily a marker of priestly inheritance, why would it show up on two J lineages, most commonly on J1, but also on J2, that split thousands of years, maybe more than 10,000 years before the time of Aaron? Moreover, some Jews with oral history of being a Kohanim and no known record of conversion have neither a J1 nor J2 lineage. They are from the haplogroup E3b, which has Middle Eastern origins. And again, E3b is E1b1b. Okay? So this is why I came to the conclusion that E1b1b and E1b1a together are Israelites. I don't separate them. Okay? So let's keep going. Sephardic Jews. Let's deal with them real quick. In addition, the considerable proportion, 20.5% of E3b M81 lineages indicate a possible gene flow from the Middle East or Northeast Africa, which at least partly could be ascribed to the Sephardic Jews. And this is the genetic makeup of Cape Verde or the Cabo Verde Islands, right? We can see the genetic introgression, and they are attributing this genetic introgression or the introduction of E1b1b into this island from the Sephardic Jews. So we know that Sephardic Jews would have had E1b1b amongst them. And the source is Y chromosome lineages and Cabo Verde Islands witnessed the diverse geographic origin of its first male settlers, Rita Goncalves and others. All right, so now in the next segment, I want to deal with the Jews in Europe, because for some reason you think because people in Europe are claiming Jewish lineage, that means that they're not automatically Jews. But we just went over the history, or they're not Jews, or can't be considered Jews. We just went over the genetics, the demography, and where E3b, E1b1b comes from and its connection to Israelites. Now I want to show historically through historiography that Jews did in fact settle in Europe and I'm going to use the source as you see on the screen, the Ashkenazic Jews in the Biblical Israelites, the early demographic development of East European Ashkenazis by Yitz van Straten. Okay, and we're going to be reading from page 63 to page 70 to establish this. First, we're going to deal with the Jewish history in Greece. The Greek colonies in the mainland Greece. Around 1000 BCE, Greeks from mainland Greece started to migrate to western coast of Anatolia. The main region was Ionia, the coastal region between Miletus in the south and Phocaea in the north. Later on, from the 6th century BCE onward, they founded a number of cities around the Cimmerian Bosporus and north of the Black Sea, some of which became part of the kingdom of the Cimmerian Bosporus, circa 438 BCE, 370 CE. The Greek colonies along the Bosporus originated from Asia Minor, mostly from the region between Miletus and Phocaea. The immigration was the result of the bad economic situation as a result of the wars against the Lydians. That started around 768 BCE. And later on, as a result of the wars against the Persians, the only solution to solve the problems was through the immigrations of part of the Ionic population. I want to stop here. This is what I was touching on earlier. This is why you can't use modern population density. What are the genes of the people that live there today in today's time to determine who lived there in times past? Because what we just read, war happened in these Greek areas, right? In the Aegean area, and it forced people to move from Ionia and to Anatolia. Reading on. It says the presence of Judeans in Anatolia has been recorded since the 3rd century BCE. For example, Miletus, Ephesus, Pergam, and Tralles are known to have had a Judean community before and after the beginning of the Common Era. So what does this mean? Jews have been in Ephesus. So when you read the New Testament about Paul going to the Ephesians, now you know why. You know, because historically, Jews were there. These Jews were in Anatolia or Asia Minor, right? So let's keep reading. And Miletus is an inscription in the theater dating from the 1st century BC, showing the places reserved for Judeans. Judeans lived in Ephesus from the early Hellenistic period, leading to an important Jewish community in the 1st century CE, many of whom were Hellenized. Now, if you read Paul's work again, when it says you were Gentiles carried away unto idols, this is what he was referencing. These Jews living in these areas of Asia Minor and Anatolia who were Hellenized and followed pretty much the local traditions of those people. So we do know Jews were here, right? In the 6th century CE, relatively well-to-do Jews lived in a town in Smyrna. An inscription was found from around the 3rd century CE in which a Jewish lady named Rufina warns the public not to bury anyone in the grave of her family under penalty of having to pay a fine to the sacred treasure and to the Jewish nation of 1,500 to 1,000 dinars, respectively. During this period, Jews were living in large parts of Asia Minor. For example, in Ephesus, Tarsus, and Armenia, and Cappadocia. Now, we do see Tarsus and Ephesus, and I believe Cappadocia being mentioned in the biblical account in Paul's letters. And now, if you have a historical understanding, you know why they went to these places. Once you get a historical understanding, you study historiography, you can see the historicity behind these things, right? So let's continue to read. During the time of Philo, Judeans lived not only along the southern and western coast of Anatolia, but also along the northwest shore in Bithynia, a Roman province that borders on Thrace. An interesting remark regarding Jewish Judean migrations is found in the Encyclopedia Judaica. Asia Minor Anatolia was undoubtedly also a homeland, or at least a transition station for the Jews who established the Jewish center on the northern bank of the Black Sea. It is therefore quite plausible that the Hellenized Judeans found in the Greek colonies around the Black Sea came from Ionia and other regions in Anatolia. The first time a Judean is mentioned in mainland Greece is between 300 and 250 BC in Oropos in East Attica. At the beginning of the Common Era, Judeans lived in various parts of mainland Greece, such as Thessaly, Boeotia, Attica, Argos, and Corinth, which is another place that's mentioned in the New Testament, the Corinthians. So again, this is why they were going to these places. You had Hellenized Jews there. And that's why Paul stated you were Gentiles carried away into the dumb idols. That's why he said you were past this, because you were adopting the culture of the people around you. He also says in the book of Romans 9, verse 6, all Israel is not Israel, because you had Israelites again that were Hellenized and were disconnected from their culture. Does not mean they're not Israelites, just mean they were disconnected from the culture, right? It says, as well as Macedonia, north of Thessaly, and also on the islands of Euboea, Cyprus, and Crete. Therefore, the Judeans around the Black Sea may have come from mainland Greece and our islands as well. Judeans and Jews around the Black Sea. Based on one manumission inscription found near Obia, circa last century BCE, two near Gorgippia, first century CE, and two near Kerch, one from the first century CE and one of an unknown date. Harkavi concluded that Judeans had lived in these towns already from before the beginning of the Common Era, that they had been completely Hellenized, and that they spoke Greek. Levinskaya mentions that from the first century CE onward, there was a strong increase in the cult of Theos Hypsistos, the highest god. Excuse me, let me go back. Theos Hypsistos, the highest god in the kingdom of Sumerian Bosporus. The cult became widespread by the 4th century. Furthermore, according to the inscriptions, the worship of the highest god was connected with Jewish synagogues from the very beginning. So they're mentioning Hellenized Jews around the Black Sea area in Anatolia, in Greece, and they're mentioning their connection to this concept of the highest God. But the concept of them being Hellenized Jews and speaking Greek and adopting the customs, again, is touched on in the New Testament under the writings of Paul when he's saying all Israel is not Israel. You were Gentiles carried away into the idols. He's speaking from a historical standpoint because that was true, and we can verify that through anthropology. It says this is particularly clear in inscriptions that contain the word prosouche, the Greek word for synagogue. The latest inscription in this respect dates from 306 CE. Jews were present in Crimea, where they joined the insurrection against the Christian bishops in Cheronesus in 300 CE. Up to the beginning of the 5th century, there is evidence of a Jewish presence in the kingdom of Sumerian Bosporus. The Greek historian Theophanes Agri writes that during the 7th century, Jews were living near Phenotype. Israel Halpin is quite clear about the Jewish presence in the region north of the Black Sea. If the existence of the Jewish settlement in this region during the Hellenistic period is still a matter of conjecture, there is certainty regarding the Roman period and thereafter. This region was seemingly never without a Jewish settlement. The closeness of Greece, and especially its colonies in Anatolia and the land of Israel, make these regions likely sources for Judeans north of the Black Sea. Now we're going to deal with Jews in Khazaria, right? Because this is always a hot topic that gets Ashkenazis panties in a bunch. They don't like hearing this. about the Khazarian conversion theory or whatever, right? But the Khazarians, I believe, had R and Q, and there are R, haplogroup R amongst Jews, and some of them could be Khazari converts. But here's the caveat that these people don't understand. If Khazarians through King Bulan converted to Judaism, that would mean Jews were already in Khazaria, because who converted him? This is why you got to have critical thinking and employ critical thinking. Okay, Jews in Khazaria. After CA or circa 670, the Khazars appear on the scene, and admixture with them should not be excluded. Although we have no information on this, we only know for certain that King Bulan of the Khazars converted to Judaism in 861. We should realize that Jews had been living in and near the region called Khazaria for more than 850 years before King Bulan of the Khazars converted to Judaism. The following question seems therefore justified. Did his conversion add significantly more converts to the already large Jewish community? Or was the situation maybe such that the king converted to Judaism because there was so many Jews already living in his kingdom? These questions cannot be answered as long as we do not have more information about the Khazars. And as mentioned before, a Jew in Khazaria did not have to be converted. Khazar. Before Halpern discusses the Khazars, he makes the following statement. For more than 600 years, Jewish settlement existed only in this one corner of Eastern Europe north of the Black Sea. The long Jewish presence during the first 670 years of the Common Era may make Khazars considerably less important for East European Jewry than assumed by some scientists. Benoist writes that Qutayba ibn Muslim expelled the Jews from Chorazmala, also named Khorasan, south of the Aral Sea. They arrived in Khazaria. It says, included among them were numerous rabbis and scholars. There were already a great many Greek or ex-Syrian Jews in Khazaria, just as there were all around the Black Sea. But it seems to have been a syncretic Judaism of the Chorasmian Jews rather than the traditional Judaism, which became the official doctrine of the Khazar state. And due, of course, Talmudic clergy were fetched from Baghdad, Khorasan, and Byzantine Empire. So I'm reading this to show you that you did have Jews indeed living in these areas, the Black Sea region, Greece, Anatolia, that, going into Europe. So it's like, when people make these certain statements, we have Jews there, we have writings. It's the same argument I use against those that are against Jews in West Africa. Askia the Great creates an edict, passes a law to banish Jews from the Niger Bend. That would mean that Jews are in the Niger Bend. It's the same thing with here. You have a Muslim expelling Jews from Khorasmia. If he's making a law expelling them from this area, that would mean they would have to be settling there. It's just it's a logical deduction. It's not hard. Let's continue to read. However, she does not provide a reference on which this information is based. In 721-722, the Byzantine Empire Leo III, the Assyrian, ordered Jews to be baptized. Part of the Jews left Byzantium. The author writes that around 722, the Jews began to come to Khazaria from Baghdad, from Khorasan, and from the land of Greece. If Jews indeed fled to Khazaria, they must have known that it was safe for them to go there. The most logical reason for them to know that was the presence of Jews living there already. This is another indication that Jews have been living in the region for quite some time. In 873-74, Jews in southern Italy were baptized, but nothing is known about an immigration. A second migration from Byzantium did take place, though. It is known both from the historian Al-Masudi and from a Jewish source that the emperor's policy, Romanos I, caused a considerable migration to Khazaria. Starr refers to information from circa 930. Many Jews had migrated thither, Khazaria, having come from all the cities of the Muslims as well as from Byzantium. During this period, the Byzantine Empire included not only Greece and Anatolia, but also southern Italy and parts of the Balkans. Migrations took place from southern Italy as well. So Jews were in Italy, Jews were in Greece, Jews were in Anatolia, and some of them migrated to Khazaria. Okay, let's keep reading. It says, in the meantime, the relatively strong proportion which they, the Jews, undoubtedly constituted in Apulia, in Auria, and later in Bari and Otranto, must have diminished during the 9th and 10th centuries, primarily as a result of the immigration and destruction caused by the Muslim invasions. Let's go back. It states, but also in this case, nothing is known about numbers. Bartel refers to scholars who have difficulty in tracing historical continuity between Jews who lived in the area during the Hellenistic, Byzantine, and Gothic periods and those who resided in the Slavic principalities hundreds of years later. Was there really such a discontinuity? As we saw above, Jews were living in the region in the 7th century. In the 8th and 10th centuries, Jews fled to Khazaria. It is realistic to assume that before we finish that thought, this map right here, I want to show this because it gives you a breakdown of the migration. So as you can see, Jews would start here and migrate upwards into, I believe this is Anatolia, going northeast into Khazaria. So it says Judean Jewish migrations leading to East European Jewry. Judean migrations from the land of Israel to Anatolia, Greece, and Italy. Number one is talking about Judean migrations from Anatolia to the kingdom of Samaria and Bosporus. Number two is pointing to Jewish migrations from Byzantium, southern Italy, Greece, Thrace, and Anatolia to southern Ukraine. The arrows in this figure indicate the beginning and end point only, not the routes taken. All right. Okay, it says the 9th century. I believe we're continuing a thought from this page here. We'll assume that in the 9th century, no Jews were living there. Were there such pogroms in those years that they all fled? Further on, the author writes, there is no doubt, for example, that between the 9th and 12th centuries, Jews were living in Kiev, which had been under Khazar rule prior to the end of the 10th century, as historical sources show that Judeans may have come to Greece, including its colonies in Italy, well before the beginning of the Common Era, followed by migrations to the area around the Black Sea. The next problem is to be tackled. Do genetic data agree with the origins of East European Jews via southern routes? All right. And again, this is the source here, Ashkenazic Jews and the Biblical Israelites, the early demographic development of East Europeans. And I was reading from page 63 to page 70. Now, back to the genetic makeup of the Levant and the legacy of the E1b1b Israelites, because they would be a part of this Jewish family. All right. Let's read this here. This is from a paper that was published in Nature, Ancient DNA from Chalcolithic. Chalcolithic just means copper age, right? Israel reveals that the role of population mixture and cultural transformation. All right. And you can see who wrote it, Mr. Harney et al. Et al. Just means in others. And it was published in 2018. It says, we find that the individuals buried in the Pekin cave represents a relatively genetically homogeneous population. This homogeneity is evident not only in the genome-wide analysis, but also in the fact that most of the male individuals, 9 out of 10, belong to Y chromosome haplogroup T. See supplementary table 1. So I always tell people this: if anybody should be arguing with us, it shouldn't be those with J markers, it should be those with T markers. And this is why. It says a lineage thought to have diversified in Near East. This finding contrasts with both earlier Neolithic and Epipaleolithic Levantine populations, which were dominated by haplogroup E. So haplogroup E dominated the Levant populations since the Neolithic and Epipaleolithic. That's over 10,000 years. Let's read on. It says, in later Bronze Age individuals, all of whom belong to haplogroup J. So they came later in the Bronze Age, but in the Epipaleolithic, which is the Upper Stone Age, and the Neolithic, which is the New Stone Age, we were dominating this region. And this is why I read earlier that the Proto-Afro-Asiatic speakers would have had haplogroup E, and then FM89 lineages adopted that culture when it came later, like here with the Bronze Age individuals, which had haplogroup J. These people came later and absorbed and adopted the culture of the originals, which would have had haplogroup E. Let's deal with some DNA charts. As you can see, not Tufi in northern Israel. You have E1b1b amongst them, and this is EM34, as you can see, 40 out of 100, 40% out of 100, out of 100%. You did have E1b1b amongst them, and of course you had EP2, the father of E1b1a and E1b amongst them. You can see Ethiopian Jews having it as well. Jordanians, 30% of their population having it. Ashkenazi Jews, 10% of them having this particular clade, which is EM123 from EM34. They are having it as well. Haplogroup EM123, and this is from the Wiki article. I don't mind using Wiki on DNA because it is backed by the International Standard of Genetics. So the origin and distribution pattern of EM123 is patchy, and this has led to discussion about how this can be explained. Cruciani et al. In 2004 proposed that although the clade has its roots in northeastern Africa, it has likely come to Ethiopia via Egypt and then the Middle East. As also noted above, came to the same conclusion by comparing different data sets. Lewis proposes that this male line may have traveled south from the Fertile Crescent with farming technology. And that's what we teach here with E1b1a as well. We teach that it came into Africa from the Fertile Crescent, from the Levant, the Levantine corridor, bringing the farming technology into Africa. The distribution of EM123 is best known for its major subclade EM34, which dominates this clade. However, earlier studies did not test for EM34. Looking beyond its geographical patterns, EM123 is also quite common in many Semitic language communities, including among both Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, accounting for over 10% of all male lines. Okay, that's haplogroup EM123. This is more about the migratory data in the DNA as well. Further genetic research observed EM35Y chromosomes primarily in northern and eastern African populations, with the E3b M35 and East African haplogroup. Because someone asked me the other day, I was on another channel, on Rob Bourne's channel. It's like, oh, are these people African? Yes, they're Africans because they have an African haplogroup. And they couldn't understand this concept. Again, what does haplogroup mean? It means a group of people that share a common ancestor. That's what it means. So no matter how they look, the white skin, loose curl patterns, stringy hair, the nose size, the jaw size, the lips, they are related to you. It says an East African haplogroup lineage present mostly in sub-Saharan African populations. M35 distribution in North Africa, the Near East, and Egypt is highly suggestive of a northbound migration through the Levantine corridor. This would suggest the initial North African migration, assumably through the Horn of Africa, involved populations of E3b M35 derivatives. M35 derivatives have also been found in Oman, Ethiopia, and Egypt, although at lower amounts than in Egypt. Despite similar geographical occurrences, the Omani M35 lineages was somewhat different from that found in Ethiopia. And that's from the Ancestral DNA, Human Origins and Migrations by Rain J. Khazaria, page number 135, 136. So what's the summation of the matter, or the conclusion of the matter? According to our model, the putative ancestors of Israelites, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, would have had Y-DNA E1b1, aka EP2, and produce E1b1b and E1b1a descendants. This would mean that Israelites would have both, not just one. They would have clades of E1b1b and clades of E1b1a. All right. E1b1b has had a long history within Jewish populations in time past. This is why I brought up the European history as well, because some people think Jews didn't go to Europe, which is insane when we have documentation, historiography, and anthropology showing you that Jews actually did migrate into Europe. E1b1b migratory data reveals its relationship with the ancient Near East. White and black skin does not define who we are, our sex chromosomes do. So we look at the Y DNA and the mitochondrial DNA to determine where we come from, because that's the proper use of that. Again, haplogroup means a group of people that share a common ancestor. So if you have haplogroup E, no matter how you look, you share a common ancestor with everyone else that has haplogroup E. E3b and E3a both are connected to this genetic legacy as Israelites. And with that, that's the end. That's the end of the presentation. I will open up the floor for questions. If anybody has questions, it is now time to present it. And you can actually come on the show and state comments, questions, or what have you about today's presentation. All right. Let's see what Ayala said. I don't think I'm familiar with you. Ayala says, sounds like being a Jew, aka Israelite, aka Muhammad, aka Yahweh, aka Christ Jesus, aka Allah, Hebrew, aka Moor, aka Islam, aka Muslim, aka Christian, aka Jehovah, is all men's made religions and God. I mean, that's your opinion. It's not really that's not really what this video is about. It's not about theology. It's about genetics and ancestry. He said, but good information to have. Okay. If anybody have any questions about today's presentation, speak now. I guess you guys can click that link and join, and we can dialogue about the information on who the E1b1b Israelites were and are. Some things that highlight again. EM34 was said to be the Afro-asiatics, and we read a paper earlier before, if you guys have seen on the channel, about EP2 being the bearers of the Afro-asiatic as well, which EP2 is the father of E1b1a and E1b1b. All right, we got somebody. Shalom, son of Yah.
Shalom, brother. I just have a couple questions for you. I'm new to this haplogroup stuff, and I get what you're saying and everything. And I honestly, this is I guess you can say, I'm trying to get into the understanding of Israel being both E1b1a and E1b1b, as you just presented. So my question, one of my first questions would be, so do you believe that the original 12 sons of Israel would have had both E1b1a and E1b1b?
No, I believe that the original 12 sons would have had EP2.
Okay.
And as they grew into a nation, they would have divulged to both E1b1a and E1b1b, because EP2 can create E1b1a or E1b1b.
Right. Okay. So my second question would be, why do you think it is that there's like a split between the two haplogroups within Southern and Northern Africa, with Sub-Saharan Africans primarily being of E1b1a and Northern Africans being of E1b1b?
Well, I think it's simple. I don't think it's too complex, because of separation of groups.
Mm-hmm.
A group of people, individuals that we call Bantu, went down into Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, about 3,000 years ago, and they carried those genes with them, right? And they dominated Africa. There's still E3b there, but like you said, that's the majority. And the same thing can be said about E1b1b in North and East Africa. That those people, those sons that had those clades, dominated those areas. So that's the short answer to your question. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful because I get what you're saying. Although, like you said, they're primarily E3b in North Africa. You can find E3a amongst them and all that. So, like I said, I just wanted clarification on what you were saying. Like, I get what you're saying. You said you believe all 12 sons would have had EP2. So that right there makes more sense than you saying that Jacob had E1b1a and not E1b1b. You get what I'm saying?
Right, right. I believe the model harmonizes it because now we can piece together the history because we got history with people that have E1b1b claiming the Israelite legacy. But not only do they have traditions, there's written documentation of these people being in these areas. There's skeletal remains with their DNA in these areas. So it'd be disingenuous to say, okay, these people don't have a claim as well.
Agreed. Because for me, I noticed just with looking at the certain sub-Saharan African tribes, I noticed that common E1b1a clan. So that's what made me, get into it more. So, like I said, I just wanted more understanding on how, how you would break that down into both Israel being E1b1a and B. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, bro. And then if you look at the Tareg, study the Tareg, they got U174, that's E1b1a, and they got EM78, which is E1b1b.
Right. Okay.
That's one clan where I think they are a living screenshot, if you will, of how we were at first. We would have been a mixture of both. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay. So my last question would be: so, do you believe the Sephardim they was of the mix? They would have. Well, you brought out one already showing that 20% of them was E3A. So, do you believe that some of them would have been E1b1a as well?
Yes. I actually touched on that on the video prior. Sephardim, right? You got at least 10% of them with E1b1a.
Okay. So
And
there you have it.
I would say those would be authentic Israelites. The ones with E markers, I say, are authentic Israelites. The ones with E1b1a, E1b1b, those will be authentic. The ones with the M89 or FM89 lineages, like the J, the T, the I, the G, those are the ones that came in, adopted our culture, and cleaved, as some would say, right? They cleaved and mimicked our culture and converted. And today it's funny because those same people that converted are trying to say they're the originals and they're saying, nah, we're the imposters. So that's why I think it's pertinent that we get into the genetics.
Right. And just to throw a little light on that, we have the information of certain Sephardims, certain Ashkenazim, taking over Sephardic congregations and just taking over their heritage within the Americas and stuff during the Inquisition. So that kind of sheds lights on how that J and stuff can get in the mix of those. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that history is true. A lot of the Sephardic synagogues were ceded over to the Ashkenazis. They came in because the Sephardim, they don't believe in the maternal lineage. They follow a paternal. Originally, they followed the paternal lineage, but the Ashkenazis overpowered them because, again, like you said, the Inquisition was suppressing a lot of the Sephardic Jews, the Spanish Jews. They were suppressing them, and if you got caught being a Jew during those times, they would enslave you or bring you in prison or kill you. So
exactly.
that helped when the Ashkenazis came, like especially in the 19th century and the 1800s. When they came in, the Sephardic Jews were already depleted, so it was easy takings, easy pickings for them.
Agreed. But like I say, brother, thank you again, and that's all the questions I have for you.
All right, appreciate your questions, brother, and being involved in the show. We got another brother. We got the I Am 10 Commandments. Shalom, brother. Welcome to the show.
Peace, man. Question: are you saying that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are literal people?
Yes, I believe they're literal people, but this is why I use the word putative. When you look at the word putative is an inference, right? But I do believe that they're literal people.
Okay, but you don't know for sure.
Well, I have historical references to Abraham. I think we did a video on that, on who Abraham could be. But do I have a a physical body? No one's saying we have a physical body. We're going off the narrative. We're using these things for inference.
I mean, okay, I mean nothing. I mean, people can do that, but the only thing what I see when people do that is that's why you have other so-called races or other tribes and groups of people claiming to be Israel. When because if it's just inference, or would you call that word punitive?
Putative. That's a word that
Yeah, punitive.
we use in the scientific field.
Okay, but if no one have any physical uh anthropological anthro and uh chemical evidence, right? So that's why you can see Mexicans and even maybe Japanese or wherever Koreans and Caucasians claiming to be Israelites as well, because it's all based upon belief. I'm not saying they're wrong for doing that, and I'm not saying black people are wrong for doing that, because who don't want to be the chosen people of the Most High, if there's a such thing as that. You see what I'm saying?
Right. That's why you have in science the competing hypothesis model. A lot of people have they have it misconstrued what happens in the field of science. Scientists don't know. People say, well, scientists know and believers believe. No, scientists try to build their beliefs or their theories based on the strongest evidence. And that's what we do here with Who Are the Israelites. We use skeletal remains of the people that existed in the Levant, and in the Negev and northern Syria, which would have been a Natufian population. Within those populations, they would have been E1b1b and E1b1.
Now that information is perfect. I mean, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything, no problem with that type of information. You're using skeleton bones and getting information of what of the DNA in those bones. I get that, but that doesn't make a person an Israelite though, or a Jew, because of those particular bones in that particular area or region of the world. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. And that's plausible. That's why I use the word if and I use the word putative, because things can be subject to change. But when they're not within our model, it comports with what we find. So um, if we're looking for the ancestors, the ancestors, the predecessors of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I would presume it would be the people that were in those lands. It wouldn't have been J markers. It wouldn't have been T markers or I markers. It would have been those with the haplogroup E. So that's how we frame our arguments, more of a
Oh, no doubt.
scientific angle. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no doubt. Of course. I mean, unless some type of war took place and everybody was driven up out of there. But then, like you say, you would still have to look at the remains that's there, far as that's in the ground or the caves or what have you, to see what kind of people were there.
Right. That's why I opened up with David Reich's statement. He said, remove the veil, and that's use and employ ancient DNA. And that's what we do here on the channel. We employ ancient DNA to make our arguments. And we do base it upon, the narrative.
Okay, now I got you. You basing that upon a narrative. So let me ask you. You sound like okay. So what do the elite, if I may call them that, uh, arguments are, or reference to this, as far as those that are of a contrast interest than what you have, or contrast perspective, a contradictory perspective as well, or opposing those your
European Jews?
Yeah, German Jews and and whoever else claiming to be Jews now, even the Mexicans and stuff like that. Because Mexicans, I was talking to some Mexicans, and they're saying that they were over there in the Levant back then during that time of the narrative. So
they would have to produce genetic information as well. This is why you do multidisciplinary studies. You don't just do one. So I don't know how much of the presentation you watched. I used demography, which is the study of the travels of people, migrations of people. I use genetics, and I use anthropology, and I use historiography to come to my conclusion.
Mhm.
I would just say, what is their DNA? Does your DNA go back to there? Because some Mexicans do have E3A and E3B. I have E3A, and I descend from a Mexican. You see what I'm saying? I'm EU290. So some of them, yes. All of them, no. I mean, they got
Yeah, I
R.
got that. I can understand some, but the
Yeah,
majority,
not the majority. Not the majority.
I'm talking about
Some
not even like probably 90. Would it be 90%? What's the percentage?
The percentage is not that high in of E markers in Mexico.
Okay, okay, no problem. We do know it's black Mexicans, but I'm not speaking of those particular ones.
Hmm.
And say those are not the ones that's on the internet claiming to be Israel and claim and
Yeah,
suddenly.
I've had conversations with them, and I let them know, you're not even in the conversation. They're not, and that's not from a place of hate. That's from a place of
No,
studying.
no, that don't have to. It don't have to be truth. Don't have to be from the place of hate. It can be this be from the place of truth. Right, right. I'm feeling that as well because many people, if you bringing out this type of information, oh, that's a that's from hate. You pulling that from the soul of your hate from hate from your soul. But like you say, you got these different disciplines just confirming the fact that this particular genetics genes were in that area.
Yes, yes. A lot of Spanish-born, mestizo-born people are products of European males with haplogroup R. I mean, that's just what the consensus is. That's what the DNA is showing us. That
Hmm.
a lot of you brothers are from the births of European males that had a long line in Mexico or a long line in Puerto Rico or anywhere in the Caribbean, South America, whatever. You are a product of that. So you have no connection to the Middle East, to these ancient peoples. But the people that do are E3A, E3B, because I can show you the progenitor there. It's a big difference. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't see nobody online right now debating with you or disagreeing with you. So that's interesting. Maybe they sleep or something. So,
Look, man, I want to debate Ron Dalton because I disagree. I don't know if you watched the video where I read his book. Like he made a lot of fatal errors in his book, and would like him to debate him on it. There's a few people I would like to debate, but it's hard to make people debate. So I just focus on doing my presentation instead of chasing certain individuals. I don't do that. It's like, okay,
what about the perspective of the Dagger Squad? I don't necessarily know a lot about them, but I think it's yeah, the Dagger Squad. I think they oppose Negroes being Israelites or Israelites being something. That's, I'm
right.
not saying Negroes are, but I wouldn't go at it. I wouldn't say it from the way that they're saying it. Um, but I think you heard of the Dagger Squad, right?
Yeah, I defeated their leader on this channel. I
Yeah,
debated
Garfield,
Garfield.
right?
Yeah, yeah, I smacked him up pretty good on his own channel.
Where you interesting. Okay, so who else is doing this particular? Who how many people you have this on your team that agrees with your perspectives? I'm just curious.
Avery of Israel, he will be on tonight. He's just
Okay.
been having internet issues. He'll be discussing it. And matter of fact, he did a 5-part series. So after this, if you want to go check that out, it's called The Origin of Semitic People, where he does the same thing. He goes through the DNA, he goes through the language groups, historiography, just like I did today, making that connection with those with E markers.
Okay. All right. No, full respect. Hopefully, I can get in on. I mean, listen to that. And so let me ask you another question, man. This is a serious question. We know you said it's a belief, and as far as being an Israelite, not the genetic markers. I guess I don't think we too many of us can argue with that. Am I correct? Before I go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's based off of you could say a belief, historicity, because here's the thing about the biblical narrative. King Ahab existed. No one can argue that. King
Hmm.
Josiah existed. No one can argue that. The deportation of the Israelites is recorded. The Babylonian
Okay.
sack of Jerusalem was recorded. Yeah.
Oh, you okay? Did you say the deportation of Israelites were recorded? You talking about like what they call Israelites at that time, though? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were called Israelites at that time. Israelites is an English metathesis of the word they would have been called in the Assyrian or the tongue that they spoke.
Okay, what were they called back then? Since in reference to that deportation that you're talking about,
They were
what
called I don't know how to. Of course, I don't speak ancient Assyrian, but in the ancient Assyrian, phonetically, it would have been like Sir Ali. That's how they would have said it. That translates to the English Israelite.
okay, I think it would be good. I don't know if you do it. It would be good to say that and then AKA the Assyrian name for it. That way, people that don't know or just coming into the information or seeking the information who hasn't found the information yet would know, okay, he's relating that to what they call the biblical narrative Israelites. And then they can go on to do some research like you did or whatever if they choose to.
Yeah, I mean, just go look at the Kirk inscription in the Black Obelisk, and
Yeah, but
it talks about that.
okay, no problem. A lot of people don't
And
know.
if you look it up, it's not going to have the Assyrian transcript. It's going to read it off in English. It's just going to say Israelite. It's not going to say. Only reason I know how it was said there because I own a book that cost me $150. Not everybody dedicated like that. It's called The Ancient Near Eastern Text by James Pritchard, and he writes it out how they wrote it out.
Okay, so who deported these people that you're mentioning right now?
The Assyrians deported the Israelites. The Assyrians did. They were deporting, and they weren't the only people that fell victim to that. They did a lot of population replacement while they were ruling, but that's historically sound. So we find that story in the Bible, but that has pretty much been solidified by archaeology.
Okay, so now when they deported these Israelites, where did they go? Where did they take them?
Some of them got displaced into different Assyrian localities in Anatolia and stuff like that. Some of them actually fled down into Egypt. And we got historical writings backing that up too, like the Elephantine Papyri.
Okay, so now why are they deporting these Israelites that you're speaking of? And I thought the Israelites had their own kingdom. Um,
Well, well, it's the same thing that happens in various places and times in history. Kingdoms fall, they become weak. Other invading places attack them. I mean, that's the simple answer to it. There's nothing deep about that. The Assyrians wanted to take over Israel because Israel is in a hotbed as far as commerce, because it's in the 11, it's right smack dab in the middle of the Levantine corridor. You control that area, you control trade.
I got you. I got you. You got some good answers. All right. So, do you accept when you say that you deal with the narrative of the scriptures of the Tanakh and Torah? Do you deal with the New Testament too, or all the books you deal with?
I deal with the New Testament, yes.
Oh, okay, no problem. No issues. I just wanted to know. Okay, so since the God of the since you saying you believe in the God of Israel and the God of the Bible, so then do not this God wouldn't this God communicate with your people today who claim to be Israelites as he did in the past, like through visions, dreams, coming to them and speaking to them and then telling them, giving them insight and information and wisdom that others don't necessarily have to be victorious in their kingdom and in their paradigm and in their religion?
The short answer to that is no, in a large aspect of things, because the Bible itself tells you that he would turn his back on us just as we turned our back on him. So from a narrative standpoint, no. But I don't argue theology. I
Okay, but hold on.
I
I got
kind of stray away from that because some people may have different perspectives, and I don't want to, open that can of worms. If you know
no,
what
no
I mean.
problem, no problem. No, you no, you straight. I'm just saying it's like do what I was trying to get to is that I thought God of the Bible was the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So, and then he sent his son, the chief Israelite, aka Christ Jesus, aka Yahweh Shai, whatever people want to call him. So I'm saying, why wouldn't he give y'all the ammunition because he says I'm thinking if you repent and turn to him, he will reestablish you and bring you and give you the strength over the nations and over so-called slave masters, right? So I don't see that transpiring in this day and time or any time in the future from the way it looks. So I'm trying to see, okay, he give you all information, the right document information down like literature, like the scriptures, but then I mean, God don't stop talking, does he? It seems like
Yeah,
he would.
actually does, because again, that scripture says he will return and go to his place,
Mhm.
because
I-
we turned our back on them. That's what the narrative says. I'm not throwing it
No,
down. I'm
I'm
not trying
agreeing
to
with you.
bludgeon you with it.
No,
I'm
I'm
not.
agreeing with you. But what I'm saying is, what about the other part of the narrative that says if you turn back to him, he will be with you and help you and guide you. I'm paraphrasing.
Right, but that's a process, and we're not there yet. We're still dealing with, for lack of better words, a punishment, as some people may look at it. So it's just like the people that say, "Oh, well, the real Jews are back in the land." I'm like, we got evicted from that place. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I don't. But
I hear
again,
you.
I don't like to argue theology. I
No, you're
really
not
don't.
arguing. You're not arguing the other. You just answer my question. That's good answers. I get that. So, but you're not a rebellious person. So why not? And people like you, why don't he? I'm thinking, why? This is my logical question I would have on. Okay, so they got God now. They back with God. They dealing with the commandments of God. Okay, they should be walking around here like Paul and Peter and them, doing miracles, and Moses and them, and the prophets. I mean, it's because they back with their God. They got their God again. They got God in their heart through
I
Christ Jesus,
disagree.
through the Holy
I,
Spirit.
I disagree because
Okay.
when we talk about the prophets and we going according to the narrative, those powers that you're mentioning, if it did happen that way, right? I always say if, because things could be subject to change, things could be embellished upon. I'm open to that. I'm a natural theologian. Um, they got those powers transferred to him directly by him. We didn't do that. We just regular people. Secondly, we are not, as a nation, repented towards the Most High. We're not. When majority of us are disenfranchised, majority of us have different beliefs, which is fine. I'm not here to argue that. My primary goal and purpose is to talk about the genetic legacy of these people.
Okay. And when you say others people, you talking about other people that was in that area. Is that am I making sure? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes, of the people that we're calling Israelites.
That was living in that area.
Yeah, yeah, they lived there for some time, then they migrated out.
I know you don't like to talk about theology because
You're gonna
see
keep making it about theology.
I see. No. I see because it's not because you're dealing with the narrative. I mean, that's part of the narrative, the theology about it, the aspect, the political positions that you can get from dealing with that narrative. And you're a calm. You appear to be a calm man, so that's cool. I love that about you. I'm just saying that the political aspect is, would are y'all willing to ride along with the disposition of the God of Israel? Like he would, one of the judgments is put people to death and for not keeping the Sabbath. Are you willing to go all the way with that narrative? Is this a question? No trick question.
I'm trying to figure out, what do you mean? Do you mean that a punishment that God is going to enact on the people, or are you saying that a punishment that we are going to enact on people?
Well, it appears through the narrative that God, as well as the people, had responsibility to enact punishment on people who broke the Sabbath. So I'm saying, whether you do the enactment yourselves or not, do y'all agree with God punishing people for not keeping
Hmm.
the Sabbath? Because
It
in
has
the narrative, he put in particular, he put this one dude to death, Moses and them, because he was, I think, picking up sticks.
on the Sabbath.
Yeah,
He
and I'm
dropped
saying,
dead. So if it's a divine punishment, that me agreeing with it or not, right? If a divine
yeah, that's
deity, hold on, listen, a divine deity exists. If a divine deity exists, doesn't matter if I agree with it or not. I have no say in that. If he's going to destroy the earth like he did, according to the narrative, the earth with the flood, what does me agreeing with it or not? I don't
I
have
mean,
no say in that. That's a high power.
you have that's out of your control. I understand that, but I'm saying when the human beings was enacting punishment, they because Moses and them, according to the literature, they were enacting punishment on these people who were violating the law. It's not just Moses, but even people down in the Book of Judges. I think even in King David and them. So King Solomon. So what I'm saying is, are y'all willing to? Do y'all accept that type of act? Do y'all accept those punishments from the Most High? I think you just said yes on that one, but do you accept your own people and acting those punishments on your people when they violate?
No, no, because in the current state that we're in now, we can't adjudicate anything because we're too disenfranchised. If we had our own government structure, then we can discuss that, but we don't. Our people are pretty much disenfranchised at this point, and we let's just talk about American blacks. Like we don't have any governmental power or structure to even enact those things. So no, we're not doing that. If you do that, then you're going to fall victim to the criminal justice system. So no.
Did your people, according to scripture, with that DNA, did they migrate to America before the so-called slavery that took place here? As they say, slavery took place here. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm for that or against that. I'm not saying there was not any slavery here, but according to the transatlantic slave trade, did some of your people migrating here in the Americas before that with that marker with those markers that you're talking about?
I haven't seen any genetic evidence to point to E1b1a or E1b1b in the Americas prior to the slave trade.
So you don't agree with Dan Calloway?
I don't
Okay.
listen. I don't agree with Dan Calloway. No, I don't.
Interesting, man. You ain't gonna stay strong to that. Okay, no problem. Well, that's consistent. I think that would be, I guess, consistent to the narrative, right? Or no? Because some people say some Israelites teach that Israelites was coming here before slavery, and I think the Moors even taught some of the
Yeah,
Moors.
I used to be a part of that camp that taught that too. But when I started, becoming more scientifically astute, I wasn't able to verify those things. So in the scientific community, when you can't find evidence to support your hypothesis, you get rid of the hypothesis.
So you don't have any genetic markers showing the Israelites being here in America before the 1400s, 1500s, 1300s, or before the 1600s.
Nope.
Oh man, that's serious business, man. I don't know. You might have a little fight on your hands on, and when it comes to Dan Calloway, the Moors. What? So the Moors, if I'm not mistaken, don't they teach that Negroes or Israelites was here before Christopher Columbus and them, and before all the slavery was going on here? And I
I'm
don't
not
really
gonna
say
put that on
you
all the
know,
Moors. Some of them may teach that. I'm not gonna blanket them with that statement. So I ain't gonna speak on that because I don't know what they all teach.
no, we know all of them don't agree, but I'm not. So we're not gonna lump them all in the same category. I'm just saying, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard Moors teach that several times, different Moors.
Well, I know they go to the Al Abu Bakr thing, which I had discussions with brothers about that. I'm like, listen, story sounds nice, but I can't substantiate it. That's my problem. I can't substantiate it with any empirical data. I can't. Same thing with Dane Calloway. Dane Calloway saying we would always hear, okay, I don't have any genetic evidence to work off of. You just telling me it happened is not good enough. Again, this is why I like the scientific approach. I have a hypothesis. Then you get evidence to support your hypothesis. Does it confirm or deny it? The ancient DNA that were able to find here in America were like the males is C haplogroup C and Q. We don't see haplogroup E, and that's just what we find. I mean,
Have they did a thorough investigation when it comes to science in reference to that DNA that you just mentioned? Have they checked all the areas that need to be checked to see if what you call the haplogroup that you mentioned about again?
Haplogroup C and Q.
You don't find that here.
You find it in America.
No, not that one. Not C and Q. The other one, the Israelites.
Oh, you don't find E here. No, you don't find any ancient samples that have been unearthed. Now you could argue and say, well, maybe there's a sample that they'll get in the future. Okay, yeah, that's in the future. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But as it stands for today, there hasn't been any haplogroup E markers found in America.
I think okay, no problem. So who's doing this research to find out whether there's any haplogroups that have been found in here in America that's E?
Geneticists.
Okay, but are those geneticists biased? Are they white supremacists? I mean, no, I'm just asking. I'm saying can they
Um,
can because you like dealing with the DNA, so I like that too. I like that actually because now it won't be as much wiggle room. You deal with theology, you can wiggle yourself all day long.
I don't deal with theology, bro. I
No,
really,
I'm saying no, not you. When I say you, I'm saying people can. If people deal with theology, then they can wiggle. But if you deal with the DNA, like you're saying, then that would probably be more difficult to uh slip through some cracks, right?
yeah,
So
I agree.
I'm saying so then maybe it needs to be more research done on that.
Well, the short answer to this is if people don't like what the geneticists are publishing in their papers, go to school, become a geneticist, and then you go publish and write your own papers and make your own publications and examine and sequence your own genomes and go on your own digs. That's how you do it. But it seems like in our community, we don't have that mentality. Our mentality is, oh, it's a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. Oh, these people are against us, blah, blah, blah. It's never, yeah, you know what? Let me go ahead and get into this field, understand it for myself, and
Well,
work in this field myself.
Israelites in that field. Are they agreeing? There's
Dude,
Israelites already in that field, right?
yeah, you mean Jewish people? Yes, they are Jewish people in that field, and they do come across information that I'm bringing up, like Priya Marjani in her paper. That has been acknowledged that the Yoruba component is amongst all 8 diverse Jewish ethnic groups, right? They have that component. So that points back to the original Israelite population being admixed with what we would call Africans.
Uh, okay, excuse me. Don't you have black geneticists as well?
Yeah, you do have black geneticists. Ibrahim Muntazer is one,
Okay.
but it's few far in between. It's obviously a European dominated field, but instead of crying and complaining about it, why not go to school for it? And if you're
I,
not, stop.
I'm feeling that.
I'm speaking to the people that have those concerns. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like there's not enough black representation somewhere, be the black representation. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, that's profound. No one can argue with you. No one should argue with you with that. I don't. Yeah, I don't understand why it's not. I think I might be too old to go school for that, but at this moment, but
You're never too old to go back to school. I'm gonna be 30, and I want to go back to school to be a geneticist. You know,
okay, yeah. You sound like you would be very great at it as well. But we do know there's deception in scientists in the science arena. There's lies and deceptions going on. But you might be one of the ones that hold the integrity, tell the truth regardless of what you find.
yeah,
But
and there's been a lot of finding. Like for instance, right, with the Chadic people, when they first were discovered to speak Afro-asiatic languages, you know what they said? The linguist was like, "Wait a minute, these black people, these African-looking people, they speak Afro-Asiatic language. They didn't want to accept it because how they looked. But guess what happened? It didn't matter they was racist. The facts were staring them dead in the face. So they just had to publish it because there's nothing else they could do. They had to go in and categorize that language group as Afro-Asiatic, no matter what their bias was, because the empirical data was apparent. And that's why I like reading scientific articles and diving into the scientific field. So it don't matter about what your opinion is. What does the empirical data say? You know what I mean?
no, that is great. That's great. So did they? did they find the DNA of Christ Jesus yet, or do they have any
Think
DNA?
about what you just said. Jesus would not have been here for us to exhume his body and do a skeletal, take the DNA of his skeletal remains. If the
No,
narrative
I'm
is
saying
true,
I'm saying maybe someone had some clothing of his or something, right? Can't you? I mean, what do y'all need to get the DNA of sometimes don't you just need clothing and maybe some hair or something?
yeah,
Or
but how do you confirm that it was his hair? Like that, it's like somebody called into Garfield's show one day and said they found the blood of Jesus that dripped on the cross, and they examined that DNA, and it had no Y DNA. Like all this crazy, like that's just all speculation, you know?
okay, well, well, maybe I didn't ask the right question. You know how like you have the seed of do they have any you said like I think you said Hezekiah was alive and was real or historically have they found any DNA of anybody that's mentioned in the Bible?
No confirmed. The confirmed graves that they have, like the tomb in Lachish, they have the bodies, but the state of Israel does not want anybody disturbing those bodies. You can't extract any DNA from it. So the state of Israel is preventing us from learning that, right? Because that will be the nail in the coffin. I agree. But they won't let us do it. Geneticists are not allowed to extract the DNA. And some people are, have a conspiracy behind it. Well, maybe they did already and they don't like the results. But I don't like to, dibble and dabble in conspiracy. But the fact of the matter is, they don't want to let people disturb the bodies, as they say.
Okay, so what is your main aim in what you're doing? What's your main goal? What's your ultimate goal in game end goal for what you're doing and the information you putting out?
To educate the people on the most probable and plausible Israelites and unify people across different geographical locations, religions, and even cultures, right? Based upon our genetic background instead of skin color, phenotype, or culture, or the language we speak. I think it's a very powerful unifying tool in that regard.
Okay, so basically we will all need to have our DNA tested then in order to get to that point though, right?
Yep, which is a very inexpensive thing to do today. I think
So
mine was like $50. I was able to get my DNA for $50. It's not, you spend more money on food every week. You spend more money on shoes, so
oh, no doubt, no doubt. We just it's an investment if you want to call it that. That's cool. Yeah, nothing wrong with putting aside an investment to put to you know. So you do have the DNA marker of the Israelites that's mentioned in the Bible, or I mean, in that area for that area. It was living in that area,
yeah, I descend. I would strongly believe that I descend from an Israelite population.
which is E1b1. I'm sorry, make sure I get that correct if you don't mind.
I'm E1b1a, but I'm also including E1b1b as well. That's what this presentation was touching on.
All right. Do you supposed to go on the dominant, or do you supposed to accept both?
You said what?
So when you say you're part of both, is that I don't understand that. Like,
No, I'm not part of both. I'm saying I accept both as Israelites, E1b1a and E1b1b. I am from E1b1a.
all right, which one is the dominant genome group in reference to them two?
The dominant gene in reference to those two, sub-Saharan Africa, where E1b1a is, they got this huge population. I don't know numbers, but they're saying that they're reproducing at a rate that they're going to be the biggest population in the future. Like even contesting China.
You talking about in the world?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. If they continue to reproduce at the rate they're doing, things could change.
Where is that group? Where is that E1b1a predominantly at in the world?
Okay, so the sub-Saharan Africa is where majority of E1b1a is, right? The second place, I believe, in the Western Hemisphere is Brazil.
What's
So
the
Brazil and Sub-Saharan Africa.
what's the percentage in the United States?
The percentage in the United States is based on sample size, like anywhere. They say 60% of African American males are E1b1a. 60%. So the majority.
What about the women?
The women don't have paternal markers, so we just based it on like if a woman was born to a man with E1b1a, we'll say, well, your paternal markers are E1b1a, but she did not inherit a Y chromosome from her her father. So you have to look at mitochondrial DNA, and I think most African American women are like L2 or L3, but I'm not
Okay,
completely
but
100% on that
no, not why not?
because I would have to go research and look at it. I'm not looking at it. I know the E1b1a off the top of my head.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I want to just make sure we get. I want to get this clear. Maybe other people might be interested. It's okay. So E1b1a, you basing that off of the L marker? I mean the what you basing that off of? The men,
E1
the white chromosome.
the Y chromosome. So that's what you get from your male side. You
Hmm.
get your mitochondrial DNA from the female side. So that's how you trace the mothers, but we trace the fathers.
And you said that's about 60% of African American, so-called African American males just fitting in that, I guess, in that category or been categorized as an African American male. About 60% have that E1b1a Y chromosome.
Yep. Yep. 60%.
Dude, most of the Israelite community agree with you.
You funny. Most of the Israelite community that I'm aware of, they don't even touch on genetics. They just Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 17, or that's how they approach it, which
Oh
is
man,
which is flawed.
right? No
Heavily.
doubt. Okay, which is maybe in their opinion is correct. I get you. So, but let me ask the question again: do most of the mainstream or well-known Israelite groups like ISUPK? I don't like calling out names really. So, Dan Calloway, I'm not. I wouldn't. I ain't
You
say
trying
that.
to start a fire on my channel, brother? You trying to start a fire? Listen, no, they don't.
No,
The short
actually not.
answer is no, they don't, because they don't deal with genetics.
I like peace. I like peace myself. I mean, just
Yeah,
because we
you
just
trying
because
to
we
make
don't
me
agree don't mean.
you trying to make me say some inflammatory stuff about that. I'm not doing it, but I'm just
No,
gonna
no,
say
no,
no, they
no.
don't.
Actually, I just want to know do the groups that most people know about and that have the biggest numbers, right? Like
No,
Israel United Christ. Do these? I'm just saying because I'm saying these names because they looked upon as being, they got the numbers, they got the leadership, you know what I'm saying. So it's like you got to respect that. It's a form of respect. There's a level of respect that come along with that. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of whether they are right or wrong. When you get numbers and you got the support, you're gonna have naturally a certain amount of respect for that because that means they're doing something that people like, whether it's wrong or right. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm saying like, do these brothers? I know you don't talk to them, some of them, or had some type of communication with
well,
their.
I actually went through IUIC. I know them very well,
Mhm.
but the thing is, like, that their teachings is flawed. I don't care how big their organization is. 'Cause if that's the case, then the dominant, religious force in the Black American community has always been the Christian church.
No doubt.
So
But I'm just saying, do they agree with you? And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Do the Christian churches, the Black Christian churches, and the Black Muslims, do they agree with you? And the Black Moors, do majority of them agree with you?
no, I would think that majority of them don't even study genetics. So no, they look at it from a standpoint like back pursuant to the Israelites. I can speak on that personally. I have personal experience. They look at everything as a prophecy fulfillment. So okay, according to the prophecy, we fulfilled this verse. Therefore, that's all we need. We just need the prophecy. But here's the problem with that: anybody can look at the prophecy and try to um, integrate themselves within that. So that's what the Jews do in,
Yeah,
in,
that's
in
what I was saying.
East, Eastern Europe.
Remember I was saying that earlier. Earlier, I
Yeah,
said,
yeah, slip through the cracks with theology. I agree with you. Yeah. So yeah, I think their methodology is flawed,
okay.
severely flawed.
It sounds like the Israelites need you and maybe they don't realize it yet or recognize it yet, because this would help give them. It sounds like this would help them get more weight to what they are proclaiming. They just have to restructure correctly their possibly their, if they're in error, their doctrine on how they come into the conclusions. It sounds like what you are offering and presenting can help them come to the conclusions a lot more with a lot more accuracy and precision. So they need to. It sounds like since you into the unify, you want to unify them through this. It sounds like this could probably be one of the main tools to do it. Whether they agree with it or not at this moment. I mean, because like didn't you say? Don't people say numbers don't lie? So didn't you probably teach that DNA don't lie, right?
DNA shows who your ancestors are. There's no getting around it. So no, DNA doesn't lie.
So I don't understand. Then I know you've been in this way longer than me, and a lot of other people probably just listening, but that don't seem right. If you an Israelite and you claiming to be an Israelite, and you a leader in the Israelite community, or like I'm talking about, like you have a position of power with authority over other people. It seemed like you would accept this information and use it as a tool to push the agenda that many of the Negroes in America and all around the world are Israelites. It seemed like you would use that as ammo.
Well, when you have a foundation and you don't want that foundation taken from you, and your credibility, is shot behind it, that's how they're looking at it. It's a power grab in their mind, like, oh no, I can't.
But this is what I'm saying. How would it to me? How is it going to shake their foundation when they pretty much are saying that anyway? They're saying most of the African Americans are Israelites anyway.
Let me tell you why.
Then you got the DNA and the science, the different science disciplines of science to support that. So it seems like that's not opposed. You're not even opposing them technically.
But they have and they accept people that are Native, Indian, Hispanic with no DNA. So they won't even say, well, they're not referring to DNA. They accept other people. So they're not going to like that. They're going to
kick that does that. The groups that does that, because some of the Israelite groups don't accept that.
Yeah, but you mentioned IUIC. I know them personally, and ISUPK. I know of them. So they teach that. So you come in and, oh, you going against REI. He gave a prophecy. Who is you, nigga? You know what I'm saying? That's how they're going to look at it. So I just present the information. Whoever willing to hear it, they can hear it. If you're not, just like in the Bible, it says, I'm going to shake the dust off my feet and move on to the next person. And if they're willing to hear it, and whether they hear it forbearing and keep moving on, I'm not focused on those that agree or disagree. Yeah.
No, I know you're not. Probably you don't seem like you do that. But check this out though. How accurate is this information? How accurate is this discipline? How accurate is this science? Just for the hearers as well as for myself, how accurate is this science, and how in reference to we taking a DNA test and we are E1b1. Okay, I got to get used to that. E1b1a and or E1b1b. How accurate and precise is that science? We're looking at the Y chromosome, right? And if we all doing our DNA test, because we all have our DNA tested anyway, probably by now, living in America, whether we know it or not, right? So we're just, so how accurate is it? How accurate do you think that really is, man? Seriously, your honest opinion.
100% accuracy. There is no misfiring with Y chromosomes. Because what Y chromosome shows you is who you descend from, what your ancestral group is. That's why I put the definition of haplogroup, meaning a group of individuals that share a common ancestor. It's 100%. So there's no misfiring on that. There's no error within that. It's an exact science.
It's an exact science.
Yep.
Well, if in exact science, black folks shouldn't deny it. Then I'm talking about the Israelite communities. If they are, they need to stop that. If it's an exact science and it's accurate, it's one, there's no flaws in it.
Yeah, but they okay. This is how they approach it. That's the white man science. In the story, there's no investigation, there's no reading, there's no studying, there's no nothing. It's based off conspiracy and pretty much idiocy in my point of view, that they would just reject something because they put white in front of it. That's first of all, I'm not racist. Secondly, that's just dumb and it stagnates our people. But I don't want to get too inflammatory with them.
No. Well, hold on. Don't worry. I deal with inflammatory then. So if it's the white man's science, how's it the white man's science? If it's accurate, it's just science, right?
Yeah, that's how I look at it. So,
I mean, we all use math. We all use math. Is that the white man's science too, or what?
They would say that's the white man's math. We use cell phones. I mean, we can just go on and on and on.
Okay, so I'm concerned about the accuracy. So you're using the Y chromosome. So when they test, you got a sister, bro. Man, if they want to join your
yeah, Sister Gorgeous, you can join. I just put the link back in the chat.
So this one, I like truth, man. I'm concerned about truth. I'm just saying, like, y'all looking at the Y chromosome. So it'd be, so if you tested me, if I got tested, right, it'd be my father, and then his father, and then his father. Is that what y'all doing?
Yes, it goes. That's the point. It's something that points back all the way to your male lineage, to the beginning of your male lineage. So
that's interesting.
That's why we use it here at the source. Because when we're talking about ancestry, the best way to determine ancestry is through your sex chromosomes, which is the Y and mitochondrial DNA. And we're focused on the male chromosome because we're dealing with a paternal or patrilineal tradition, which you find in the Bible.
Okay, now that's my other concern too. When y'all, I know you say you deal with the patrilineal, but what about the mother? Do y'all got a accurate science on that? Because we do come from our mothers as well, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing about the Israelites. Same thing true for the East European Jews. Mm-hmm. When they fled, they didn't bring their women. They fled to Europe and they married European wives. When we came into sub-Saharan Africa, we invaded sub-Saharan Africa and it was mostly male driven. And we came in and we took the local women of sub-Saharan Africa. You know what I mean? So the pygmies, the forest people, the bushmen, we took those women and made them our wives and had children with them.
Okay, I don't. So what's your point?
My point is that mitochondrial DNA is subject to change based on that. So if we marry in different groups of women, they're going to have different mitochondrial DNA. So with the Y chromosome is more stable in that regard. Because the Jewish men in Europe, their women have haplogroup K. Those are European women. The Jewish men that went into sub-Saharan Africa, they married women that had L0 or L2, so.
So, okay. So if you, wait a minute. So are you saying you're Israelite based upon your white, or based upon the Y chromosome?
Yes.
Okay. You're not Israelite based upon your, what's the other chromosome called? What's that?
Your X chromosome.
The X. So you're not necessarily Israelite based upon the X chromosome.
Right, because an Israelite is based on someone who comes from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are males.
Okay,
so we trace the Y chromosome.
But can't your mom come from a father who has the Y chromosome?
Yes.
If that happens, then don't that make her an Israelite?
It does.
So then, but she has an X in the X chromosome.
Yes, she has 2 X.
So one of those X's is an Israelite chromosome, correct? At least one.
She's an Israelite, but trying to trace it through her mother line is not going to be clear because again, we had different women during different epochs of time in the
I got
past.
no, I got that. I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, I don't know. I don't know. It seemed like some people would. I mean, I was taught what you taught about tracing it through the Y chromosome. So I'm feeling that, of course, already strongly. But I'm saying
What
now,
I would tell a woman is to get a DNA test of a brother or father and go off that for the paternal side. We don't disregard women, but
well, that's not
this is
accurate either.
this is hold
That's
on,
not consistent either.
hold
Yeah,
on,
go ahead.
hold on.
Yeah.
Because to determine who is an Israelite is based upon three men: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They would all have a Y chromosome, so that's why we go that route.
Okay, but what chromosome does Sarah have? Abraham's wife.
I would say L3, but people argue against that. I would say L3 because L3 has an ancient presence in the Near East. I think
Okay,
L2 does too.
okay? When you say L3 and L2, you talking about the excuse me.
Mitochondrial DNA, yeah.
Okay, so you do some research on that then, right?
Yes.
So if the women have the what's it again?
L3.
If women, if predominantly black women have L3 and L2, then it's possible she's a daughter of Sarah or
If you
come
want
from
to,
Sarah. If I
you
make
can make the argument for it. Yeah, you can make an argument for it.
well, yeah, but you're the professional. What do you say?
That's where I would put her most likely in that haplogroup L3
Interesting.
from my research.
Respects, man.
But
Respects. I'm a
that's not the primary focus, but I would put her there.
okay. That's not your primary focus. Well, I think that's an important focus, though. You might want to, since you're a professional at that, because see, the mamas are very important.
Yeah,
Because
they are. Without them, you can't reproduce. No one's saying they're not. But I'm just talking
well,
about
not just
tracing who's an Israelite in that regard would be a
that's what
paternal question, not a maternal question.
I know, but check this out. This is what I'm saying. Without Sarah, there wouldn't be no Israelites.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So what I'm saying is because
According to the narrative.
according to the narrative,
But Abraham could have got another wife and had children with her.
not so. Hold on for a minute. But I ain't gonna say it like that.
Yeah, I'm
This is
like,
what I'm
yes, he's a man with
this,
a Y chromosome. You have sex with a woman, he's still gonna pass that Y chromosome no
I
matter
got you. I
who it
got you.
is.
But this is the angle I'm coming from. I'm coming from this angle. I agree with you. I'm saying God said, according to the narrative, that He chose Sarah to bear this child, which means the Most High evidently, according to the narrative, wanted that L2 or you say the L3, he must have wanted the L3 and the E1b1b chromosome to come together to make this Israelite nation, eventually make this Israelite nation. Am I correct?
I mean, if you want to look at it like that, you can say that. But
But
again,
no,
I mean,
I think
it was
uh,
Abraham's seed that was chosen.
okay,
Um,
I got you.
we
But
understand that he was with Sarah, and then he had a child with the maidservant Hagar and made Ishmael.
this is what I'm
Um,
saying, right?
but
This is what
that
I'm saying, though.
prophecy could have been fulfilled through any female, but he got with Sarah, so they wanted to do the narrative through Sarah. So
But I'm saying it okay, no problem. Check this out. But the prophecy could have been fulfilled to any other female because he didn't even choose Hagar. He chose Sarah. And then not only that, he chose Rebecca. And then not only that, you see what I'm saying?
I was about to go down that line. All right, so with that logic, then okay, Jacob and Esau is the chosen line.
Well, according to the narrative, then uh Esau wouldn't be
Exactly. Uh, it,
because
it,
of but that
but
was
they
now
share
you're
the
dealing with
same mother. They share the same mother.
yeah, but the Pacifics is but that's the technicality. The technicality would be okay, Esau wasn't chosen because of the narrative.
Yes,
Not
that's
not
my
because of the
point. It could
parents,
have
not
been.
because of the parents, not because of the parents. So
Yes, that's my point. I'm like
I mean
that
the mother, excuse me.
that could have been fulfilled through any woman. It's just that was the situation to carry out that prophecy.
You know what? Hey man, I like what y'all doing, what you're saying, But you got some sisters, man, they're very well learned, and a lot of them even know the Hebrew, and they would say, hey man, the women they see, because think about it, and I understand their perspective. This is why I'm talking like this now, because I didn't used to talk like this. Well, I did, but then not as passionate about it, or energetic about it. According to the narrative, God did choose women, and them other women, he didn't even accept their those children to be the part of the chosen. According to the narrative, I didn't make the story up. I'm just saying.
But Abraham's seed was chosen. It was through Isaac
Isaac,
and then Jacob.
hold on, but Isaac's mom. But this is what I'm saying. I don't know what to call it.
Then Jacob had 4 different women. So it's like, no, like it's patrilineal. Like any way you slice it or cut it, it's gonna be patrilineal.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that according to the narrative, he chose those 4 particular women. He didn't choose 4 other women that he could have chose. He chose those particular 4 women. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because Abraham chose Sarah, and
even with King David,
Abraham wanted to seed with Sarah initially, but she couldn't have children at first, and she offered Hagar, which is a Middle Eastern custom. That lets us know that the story is grounded in empirical reality. It's not something just made up. And then she was able to have children after that. So to fulfill what was initially supposed to happen.
Correct.
A child with Sarah. It's not.
But dealing with the science, I'm saying, but dealing with the science, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just deal with science, how accurate can we trace? How accurate is the? Can you pronounce that word for the women?
Maternal, the mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah, the maternal. What's the accuracy on that?
Y DNA is always going to be more accurate because men have led the charge in history as far as discovering and traveling and leaving. So with
but forget all that. We're dealing with science.
That is science. You have to trace the migratory routes. So that's usually led by Y DNA, and then they go pick up other women and have children with them. That's the issue you're going to have when you trace maternal DNA.
Okay, what's the issue? I'm not understanding that.
Like haplogroup U6 is like in Iran, and Iran, the area above Iran in South Asia, you see U6, but you also see it in North Africa. But the problem with that is, look, you'll see men traveling from certain areas, going to another area, and adopting other women. You get what I'm saying? That's not discounting women, but I'm just saying when you're tracing it, there are caveats and nuances that you have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. I see you saying it's easier and it's more concrete, if I may say, with the Y chromosome.
Yes.
Got it.
And people shouldn't be emotional behind it too, like because some people might be, oh well, he discounting women. No, nobody's discounting women at all.
No, you're not doing that. No, I don't take that. That. If people was listening with the wrong type of ear, then they might perceive that. But I think you and me done talked before in the past. And you're the same. You're pretty much saying the same. I mean, you got the same energy, the same spirit that we did in the past. So, no, I don't take that from you. I don't think people should take that. You're saying that you're saying what science says. Basically, it's more concrete. It's more accurate. It's easier to
pinpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your sister. I think your sister want to talk. I got maybe 1 or 2 more questions. I have to let her see what
Yeah, Sister Gorgeous, did you have anything you want to say?
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay. I can wait until the brother is finished. That's not a problem.
No, go ahead, my sister.
Okay. Yeah, I'm the sister from the last what was it, the night before last night? I hope you can hear me well. I because I cannot see the comments when I was talking here, I could not see the comments, and then later on I'm just rewatched the video, and I saw some comments, and it said that some people were saying that I believe in the science and not the Bible, and so on and so forth. And I just want to clear one thing. I'm not an atheist or anything like that, so just I want to clear that one up. But brother, I want to ask you, what is your stand on E1b1b? Because I read it said I came a little bit late. I'm sorry, but I think I heard a lot of Hebrew Israelis saying that um, that the Ethiopians, they are the Hamites and Egyptians and so on. And I was always thinking, like, okay, how is that if we are a Hamitic race and you're not, and then still we carry the same haplogroup, we came from the same haplogroup. I was always confused by that. So I, I just came in. So maybe you have already addressed that, inshallah. So can you please explain to me how does that work?
Yeah, and those brothers are completely wrong. Because just like you said, yeah, those people in Ethiopia, Eritrea with E1b1b are related to those with E1b1a. So if you say that they're ham, you're saying that you're ham as well. You can't escape that. No, I don't teach that. E1b1a and E1b1b are related. So the Israelites, and this is what this was about. This whole presentation was showing the genetic legacy of the E1b1b Israelites. These Israelites would have had E1b1b, and we have historical documentation, genetic records showing that. So basically, we teach here on the source that E1b1a and E1b1b are connected, and both of them have a claim to the Israelite legacy together. We don't separate. We don't separate E1b1a and E1b1b here.
Oh, that is very interesting, because I always heard that the Hamites and the Shemites, you see, and I was always thinking like we literally have came from the same place, and how is one Ham? If let's say we are a Hamite, then you of course have to be a Hamite, or we both are the Shemites. It cannot, you cannot have one, uh, one and then the other not. That did never click with me. And brother, also I have noticed that when it comes to Kemetic community and in Hebrew, you guys have always back and forth, I have noticed. But what I also noticed was that when we say now the Kemetic says no, the Hebrews were Asiatic and they were never black, and then the Hebrews say no, and all science nowadays say no, they were white people. The Egyptian were white people. So that had me thinking, like, you cannot have Hebrews white and Egyptian black, and the vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that would not make any sense, because Moses was in the house of Pharaoh. um Joseph was the prophet Joseph was in the midst, and Jesus even hide in Egypt. I mean, how could we then say, of course I understand that white people are trying very hard to make Egypt white, okay, I understand that, because they cannot make Egypt black and in Israel white. That I understand that. But we have to also understand as black people that this is a game that they are playing here, and it's just putting us against each other. If anyone says Hebrews are white, then we are admitting automatically that Egyptians were white. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
this
yeah, I understand completely what you're saying.
it
Yeah, you can make that argument back then that Egypt was black, but you have to keep in mind people can also turn white. So if I have a child, or are you familiar with Drake? I know you're not American. Are you familiar with Drake, the rapper?
sorry, no, I'm not an American. Brother here asked me if I'm Somali. Yes, I am Somali. So yeah, but I do know Drake the rapper. Yeah, the light,
Yeah.
very very light skin. Mm-hmm.
So he just had a child with a European female, and his son doesn't look anything like a black man. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so down the line, that he can keep reproducing with European women and look like white Europeans, but still genetically he's related to us. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's a good argument. But people can down the line become white. I think if you have time to go back and watch this video, I'll touch on that.
Okay. No, I mean, brother, the Balkans, for instance, they are white people, but they carry E1b1b, and we are dark people, and we carry the same. So I understand people in time they will change their color either to darker color or to lighter color. But what I'm saying is, when we talk about genetics, for instance, right? I think what white people are doing is that, like trying to make the whole, like trying to take also to North Africa to Middle East right now. They are counted to Middle East. They're trying to take that whole section to make it as white as possible. And we have to say there were dark people living in both places, because we cannot have light people mixing and hiding in between dark light white people
I
hiding
agree with
in
you.
black
I
people.
agree.
You understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So I understand that they're trying to take Egypt as white, and now also Egypt. Look, we don't know that they're the one who's doing the genetics. We don't know. Like, but for instance, in Israel, they have graves that they're ancient and graves, and they don't want to share the genetics with you or with us. We don't know what these people had for DNA. We don't know that. The same thing can happen in Egypt too, that trying to they have to make these two connect. They have to make these two population white. It just doesn't work out otherwise. And I think we have to look at both sides. This is like, because if we look at Egypt, the people who lived in Egypt, they have M78, EM78, the people that who live there. So were they Hamites? Now that's also a question that we have to ask. What were they? You understand? There, because they were E1b1. I'm not talking about the pharaohs that they're now putting on European DNA. I don't know. They're the one who's doing it. We don't know. But the people, the ordinary people, they were carrying the EM78, and these are this haplogroup is E1b1b. So what are they then? Are they Hamites or are they Shemites? You know,
Shemites.
Shemites.
Yeah. So the E1b1b got that later. So Egypt. So ancient Egypt went through different phases of people and different waves of migration. Initially, they would have been haplogroup AM13. That's like your early Nilotes, your early Cushitic people, people like that. So if you study the pre-Kerma population, we have the DNA of those people, and they're just south of Egypt, of Upper Egypt. And we can infer that that would have been the initial dynastic pre-dynastic Egyptian population. Then sometime down the line, you start getting Eurasian migrations in, and that's why you have the Dynasty 18 with haplogroup R, or earlier Middle Kingdom dynasties with haplogroup K, and then eventually we do start seeing E markers there because you have Pharaoh Ramesses the third with E1b1a. So when people look at Egypt, to properly look at it, especially ancient Egypt, it was a hodgepodge of people mixing in that area. So you got different genetic information. So when people say, well, oh, these people are Ham and they had EM78, that's not true. Haplogroup A was there first. And we know the kingdom of Cush, which is Nubia, had haplogroup A. Those would be the actual Hamites, not EM78 or E1b1b.
Okay, thank you for clarifying this. This was what I had in mind, also. So, of course, we find E1b1b in the Levant and by the Natufians, and also, so I was also thinking, because the E haplogroup was there first before any other haplogroup came, and with T, I read somewhere that T was there too, and we have a lot of T in Somalia now. You find most T in Somalia, for instance, and maybe these two people just migrated together. So the J came later, but now J became the face of Shem, right? So how did that happen? if this migrated later, and also when we said that Shem lived in that area, now Shem, J became Shem. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're asking why these different groups claiming Shemitic or Semitic lineage. It's because, and I covered this actually during my presentation. So if you get some free time, I advise you to watch the whole thing. Um, they came in later and absorbed and adopted the culture of the people already there. So if you're familiar with the Europeans coming in and taking over the Indians in America, they did the same thing. Now you have $5 Indians claiming to be the original native people of the land of America. But we know that's not true because it's much more recent. With Israel, this happened 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. So it's easier for them to make that claim because the original people that were there before are not as numerous in that part of the world now. And secondly, it happened so long ago, they can make that argument. But the short answer is, as you stated before, haplogroup E dominated that land for more than 10,000 years. Then the foreigners came in and they absorbed and adopted that lineage. And now they're trying to keep the tradition going, if you will.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. The brother can go ahead. Please excuse me.
All right, Sister Shalom.
Thank you,
Okay.
Salam.
Peace, pieces. Look, my man. That's why I think why you're stressing the Y chromosome. Uh, now I see even more clearly. Well, I was seeing it clearly anyway, but that just confirmed the fact that why y'all dealing with the Y chromosome in reference to this genetic information.
Yeah, I mean it's very vital to understanding what the original population would be. Because just like she brought up, you have a mixture of people coming in later. And they came in around the copper and bronze age, but we were there since the Stone Age. It's a big difference. It's the original people there versus the Johnny come latelys that come later and absorb our language and adopt our culture and our way of life. And now they're telling the originals, "You're the converts, we're the real ones." No, that's not the case. You know, same thing happened here in America. So I like using that because it's a modern example of people taking over a land and then claiming to be the original.
Can I say quickly something?
You got it.
Sorry. As I said before, I'm a Muslim, and also in Islam, if you read about the prophets, right? It is very specific description from the prophets. For instance, Prophet Musa or Moses, right? Prophet Musa and the Prophet Muhammad describe him as very, very, very dark person. He was very, very dark. So was also Solomon. Solomon was also dark in Islam, right? That was never a question. That was never a debate on how they looked, the prophet, that they were very dark people, they were black people. There was never a debate. It's just became now the European are just going crazy with showing the pictures of Musa or even the Egyptians. Everybody is like white, 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 right? But in Islam, when we look at it, even the prophet and even Jesus, he was very dark. He was dark, but he had a very curly hair. But what we know is that Musa and Suleiman, them two was described, and they were very, very dark. So I just want to add to that too. So I don't know why now the color have become so whitened with time.
Yeah, that's because the society that's going out and doing the digs or whatnot, or that's writing about these findings and writing about ancient Egypt, they're white. So it's common to try to project yourself into populations like that, especially when you represent the dominant culture. A great example of that is they just did a movie a couple years back with Christian Bale about Moses in the commandments in Egypt. And the Egyptians were all white, the Israelites were all white. And Ridley Scott the person who directed the film was questioned on that. Like, why don't you have any black actors to represent at least the Egyptians, right? And he said because Rupert Murdoch and Fox and the studios would not fund a movie that's largely cast black dealing with ancient Egypt. So you can actually find that article online. So we do know there is a bias on especially ancient Egypt, ancient Near East, and how they depict them. There is a known bias on that. But like this is how we fix that. We go into those fields and we start representing Egypt the right way. And that's how you combat that.
And I always hear this an argument when it comes also to Egypt, right? From white and from Arab people, they always say like, but look at the pictures. They don't look Negroid. They are not Negroid. These people don't look black at all. They seem to forget that there is whole nations right living right underneath Egypt that look exactly like the paintings that we see on the walls. That, and also in history, they in the 19th century they took us the whole, I mean, the Horn of Africa all the way to North Africa, just made us Caucasian, right? Because if you look at now the Somalis and the Ethiopians and the Bejas, we all fell under the Caucasian race. So this was something that to separate, right? And you understand what I'm saying? And that is always when I hear this argument, well, they don't look black, right? But hey, there are people who look just like that. Black is not only one look. We have different looks. People look different shapes. So this is also something that they like and love to run with it, you know, and say, I even hear a white guy arguing that they were burned face just meant a tan face. A white guy who tanned a little bit. You understand? So when we separate Israel and Egypt, then we have a problem. We will have a problem. They are trying to attach the two to make a white race, but when we separate them two and say, okay, no, Egypt was white people, but Israel was black people. Now we have a problem. So I think we have to somehow come together. If we have to claim both nations, otherwise we will lose. We will lose. You understand what I'm saying? Thank you, Olalo. Orthodox more. Thank you, Olalo. That's what I'm saying. It's always this narrative. They don't look black. You see? Look at them. They don't look black.
Yeah, those people, again, they probably light skinned. They probably are, you know, their skin pigment is not as dark, and they're probably trying to project themselves into the past. That's not how it works. You just have to look at the data and accept it. Every skeleton that we unearth, you know, from ancient Egypt, you know, primarily is like Africoid and Negroid and the way they look, and also, like you said, the depictions would have been would have been dark skin, not Negroid, but dark skin. So that's just a reality they have to accept. But they're biased, and it just goes back to people being biased and racist and against dark skin. That's the easiest way to answer that. Those people in Egypt, and a lot of those people in Egypt, if you look at their genetic markers, they're not from the E family. Some of them are like J, you know, haplogroup R. And they're speaking on these things that they shouldn't be, you know, speaking on, in my opinion.
But those can match later, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's what you. I think that's the point of your show, man. It's like you all, everybody, let's stop just focusing on the looks. Let's see what these folks. Let's see what the DNA, what type of DNA you have, and what's the DNA of the people that the ancients as well. What's their DNA, and what's the DNA of the people who's living there now, and what's the DNA of the people who like us online. What is our DNA? Because if we keep focusing on, like you say, I think this is what the point you was making. Just let me know if this is wrong or not. But if we keep focusing on the looks, then we might be deceived or misled like that. And the Israelites in the streets preaching, they gotta. You saying that's confirming that they have to readjust their information, because if you just go on the looks, that person might not even be E1b1b.
Yeah, and here's another thing too that white supremacists don't like to acknowledge. At one point, the whole entire Earth was dark skinned or had brown skin. There was no white people. You know what I mean? So that's the consensus now in the scientific realm. That at one point, I think it's like what 7,000 years ago. Before that point, there was no individual with white skin, and that's a hard pill for people to swallow because people base things on color, and they think that white is right and white was the first and white was Adam. Like she brought up about depicting themselves as Egyptians, that goes all the way back to they depict themselves as Adam and Eve, the first
Okay.
people on that planet.
So my question would be, can that be proven through DNA that there were no Caucasian? See, all that
Yes,
sounds good, but
yes,
can
yes,
science prove that there was no Caucasian looking people, or
yes.
we're not talking about like albinos per se, but you see what I'm saying? Can that be proven through DNA? Because everybody, we want to do the science now. Everybody, we saying, okay, let's upgrade. Let's deal with the science, all the disciplines of science, not just theology, not just theology.
Yep. I mean, so a great article to look up is the Cheddar argument article. And within that article, they found out that Cheddar was heavily pigmented. He would have been a dark person. And not only do they stop at Cheddar they say all of Western Europe would have looked like Cheddar. You know, then there's another article about the origin of pale skin in Europe. And in that article, it says they put an upper limit on pale skin, and they say less than 7,000 years ago. Came into an individual. Some articles say an individual brought it in, and then it eventually spread throughout Europe. So, according to the scientific findings, you go back beyond 7,000, 8,000 years, there were no white people, or what you as you call them today.
I
I
mean,
think
how can you prove that through science though? Not articles. I'm saying, how can you prove that through science? Not philosophy, but how can you prove
That's
that
not
through?
philosophy. I'll tell you why.
How can you
Because
prove it through DNA? I'm saying, how can you prove
because
that through DNA?
because through DNA you can sequence the genomes that are responsible for the pigmentation of your skin. That's what they did with Cheddar Man. They sequenced his genome, and his genomes lined up with a dark pigmented man. That's why they depict him as a dark pigmented man.
Can you repeat that again? You can sequence the genomes now. What else? Say that again.
Right. If you got your DNA analyzed, they can sequence the genome or the genetic information that's responsible for the color of your skin. Okay, you follow me?
Yeah, that's how I wanted you to repeat it again. That sounds profound.
So when they
However, what's the
so
difference
when they
between hold
dug up,
on? What's the difference between Caucasian complexion and albinoism? So I'm saying, see what I'm saying? Because you said they can sequence the genome to determine what gene produces the complexion of your skin. But you got to understand, black folks do have albinos,
well,
and they're not Caucasians.
got you. Albino is not the same thing as what we call just having white skin. Albinos is actually the destruction of melanin. Period. White people do still have melanin. Albinos, this is why their hair is white. They don't even have any melanin anywhere. So that's different. That's one's destroying melanin completely. One is just reducing melanin. It's two different things.
Okay, no problem. And you're saying the genes can determine which one is destroying melanin or which one is just producing lack of not as much melanin.
Yes.
And the
So
genes can prove that.
yes, because we can see the
That's some
sequence.
serious science.
Yeah, I advise you to look up those papers that I'm referencing so you can read for yourself. Study Cheddar Man, study the evolution of white skin in Europeans. That's another article, and just read up on it.
Okay, so since you into the genes and the DNA, where do the so-called, as we know it, as the Caucasian Europeans come from? Because they obviously don't come from the E1b1b people.
Majority of Europeans come from R1. I think R1A or R1B. So this is the Yamnaya culture. They come from the Yamnaya. They originally spread from the Balkans into Europe, and they
Okay, so
actually killed off the original population of Europe.
so that means are you okay? I want to make sure this is clear. So they do not share the exact same ancestor as the E1b1a people. What I'm
No,
trying to say is that
they don't.
everybody don't come from Adam and Eve then.
I'm not
So
saying that either. All humans have a common ancestry, but we are not from the same genetic line. They're from
okay,
R, we're from E. You follow me?
can you
So,
say that again? Can you say that again? Can you put that at maybe a little bit more detailed on what you just said and make it more clear for those who don't have the necessary education as you have?
all right, so we come from haplogroup E. Haplogroup E descends from DE. So DE is the parent of E. They come from haplogroup R. The parent of R goes back to F and CF. Those are two different male lines.
Right. But do they all go eventually go back to the same male line? That's the question.
Yes, they do. All of them do. All genetic lines and surviving extant human populations go back to the same male line, and that's what the Bible got right about with Adam and Noah.
Okay, but do you? Okay, so this is my question. Now. I don't know. Now this is. Now, I'm just asking. To me, that's a flaw. That to me, that's like a flaw because technically, then those Caucasians is actually your brother and
Yeah,
sisters.
from a humanity standpoint, but from
Okay, so you do agree
genetic
with that?
relate, yeah, from a humanity, we have a shared humanity. We do, but when
Okay,
we're talking about in science, we have something called the TMRCA, the most recent common ancestor. We don't share that with them.
okay, no problem. You can have. They can have that. People can have that. I'm just saying. So if we all share the ultimately the same common ancestor, I don't see what the beef should be. Why folks beefing out here?
Yeah, I agree. Again, I'm not racist, so I don't go
Right,
against
right,
people based on that. This show was just to establish who are the Israelites. You understand?
right. No, I know
And
you're not beefing. I'm saying like you. I know you say you're not racist. I'm saying like you got the Mexicans. All they want to deal, not all of them, but a lot of them, just want to deal with Mexicans. They want to see themselves prosper. They don't, even if they don't care. Some of them, that's like forget the black folks. We don't care, but they don't prosper. We ain't dealing with them. We ain't trying to help them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then you got the other groups doing the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, don't y'all know? According to the Bible, everybody believe in the Bible. We all come from the same ancestor. What's the issue? Can we all eat on this earth? Can we all be prosperous on this earth?
well, some people have, and I've seen it in the chat. Some people believe some people descend from the fallen angels, so they don't believe that. But the science don't show that. The science shows that we all go back to a common ancestor.
Okay, but we can't be believing. We got to get deeper than whoever. I
Yeah,
don't know who did
I agree.
that, but I thought we gonna deal with the science, which is supposed to be flawless. So if we're gonna deal with something that's flawed, who don't like flawless? Everybody like a flawless car, a flawless house, a flawless architecture, a flawless
Brother,
garden. Come on now. So we
uh,
can't be dealing with just beliefs. Oh, some people come from the fallen angels. Okay, then where the fallen angels come from? You know, then you got to go into all that, and then where's their DNA at?
can I ask a question? Brother, I'm sorry. And hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, so it's good, good. Um, so do you mean that there are E1b1b is which subclade of E1b1b do you think it's Israel? Let's say.
I think EM34, a lot of EM34 has a lineage, but I don't just pick one particular one. I believe that we have various subclades within Israel, but EM34, there's a lot of information, a lot of findings that comport with EM34. What's the other one? EZ880, I believe it is, was found amongst the Natufians, which is also a clade of EM34 and EM35. So I focus on those, but I don't really, pigeonhole anyone on which subclade. Did that answer your question?
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So let me ask you this, scholar. If we all have the same common ancestor, aka Adam, aka his wife Eve, then shouldn't all men and women on earth, shouldn't all the nations and peoples seek to do what's right towards one another and get along and do the right thing and um, be prosperous? It seems as if there should be an agenda for everybody on earth to be prosperous, healthy, sound mind, sound body. That shouldn't just be for one particular group of people. Everybody should be royal. Everybody should, because you come from the same ancestor. So that's like having a mother and father, and you got the same brothers and sisters, but you don't want to treat your brothers and sisters right and fair. So on a higher level or a greater level, we all come from Adam. If we all come from Adam and Eve, it seems like everybody should be held accountable for their actions, for what they're doing. It's like Martin Luther King was correct. You got to look at the people at the content of their character, not just how they look. So if that's what we're going on, we can't just, oh, you're an Israelite, you're chosen. No, all y'all chosen to do the right thing. Everybody is responsible to do the right thing. That's what it seemed. But let me know what you think about that.
I agree. Everyone should be responsible on their actions, but when we're talking about who was chosen according to the scripture, I mean, it's clear who was chosen. So those two separate things. But I do believe as humans, we should behave ourselves. I have no disagreement there. Every human should behave themselves, and you should. But saying what people should do and what's actually happening is two different things. Like, I think all of the brothers in Africa should stop fighting just because they have a different language, different religion, and they live in a different region. But yeah, they should do that. But are they going to do it just because I said that? That's where we are, having an issue at.
Okay, we say.
I also
Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
sorry, sorry. I also heard that some Hebrew is saying that God is racist, and he's very racist. Do you agree with that? Is God racist?
I don't, but there's a lot of Israelites that believe different things, and that's why I don't like to speak on theology too much because that'll open up a can of worms. And I didn't make this presentation for that, but me personally, I don't believe that he's quote unquote racist, especially in the way we believe and think of it now, judging people on how they look and how their skin color is. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons I watched your video, a couple of your videos, and it was really refreshing to hear somebody who is who goes after science, of course, and to prove his point, and also very respectful. I have to my add that, I mean, very respectful, because everybody have their own beliefs, but I think as a human beings, in the end of the day, we should not oppress or suppress anybody else. And when I hear like God is oppressive and God is racist, it throws me a little bit off. Anyway, that was not the what we were talking about here. We were talking about the haplogroups of E3b and E3a, because they are siblings. They came from the same source. So my question you already answered. I'm gonna just chill back and go away. But yeah, that was all. I was having very difficult, hard to understand how one can be a ham and the other one can be a sham. That was very crazy to me. But thank you for clarifying, and I'm going to let somebody else come.
Hold on, sister. I got a question for you and the speaker. Okay. This is for both of you all. I want to hear both of y'all.
All right.
Okay, look, if the God of the Bible has chosen a particular group of people to be above all people, according to the text, that's where I think a lot of people are saying God is racist. So, but because that's going to produce, most likely that's going to cause or could cause animosity with the other people who are not considered chosen people.
I hear you, but that's not really racism. I'm gonna tell you
no problem. That's what I'm asking. What will you all call that then?
What I think chosen means for me is because Israel is in the middle of the earth, and God chose these people to spread His word. That is how I think it is. I don't think is they are special people. God chose them to spread His words, and when they did, they were the only people who accepted, and the rest around them they rejected. So God chose these. That's how I believe. I'm not a Hebrew. I'm a Muslim. For me, for my belief, for our belief, is anybody who is a Muslim is a chosen person. Whoever follows the laws and the rules that Allah gave it to us, and we accept Him as the only creator, and there is no other creator but Him. We are the chosen ones. So does the Christians. Probably they think that whoever follows Jesus, and they are the chosen ones. But the thing is, I think in all Abrahamic religion, we know for a fact, it says in the Quran, Allah chose and Bani Israel. And that's why we have so many prophets rose from this nation. And I think it's because of the location, and they're the first people who accepted. And that's what I think, not because they are superhuman, but they accepted the laws that God gave it to them, and the people around them rejected. I don't know, brother, how is your belief, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You pretty much said what I was going to say about the chosen thing, because the Bible says that the Israelites were supposed to be a light to the Gentiles. So that's what that's referring to. That we're supposed to be a light. We're chosen to be a beacon for the Most High. It has nothing to do with our modern concept of race, like the Europeans did. Oh, white means good, pure, and black means inferior, slave. No, that's not what you find in the Bible. In the biblical narrative, you even see it says, treat the stranger among you like a native born. So that's not racist. You follow me, brother, the I am 10 commandments? Are you
Yeah,
there?
I hear you. I just wanted to see what you had to say. Well, I just had to either grow or either come to that conclusion. I just feel like if we all have the same parents, everybody's responsible for spreading the truth and being a light to themselves and to one another. I don't feel like that just should be at this point. I don't feel like that should be just designated to one particular group of people.
I mean, to be chosen is
I
not.
think everybody's chosen to. I think everybody's chosen to do the right thing. Should be chosen to do the right thing and to carry the truth and speak the truth and do the truth. That way, there will not be no oppression if we all do that.
I think to be chosen is not an easy task. It is a task that people like. If somebody chooses me to do a task, that's how I see it, and they were chosen to do the task because of the prophet that was sent and from that nation to do the task that they should spread the news. But to be a chosen people comes also with a lot of responsibility. That's what I think.
Right, but don't all humans, no, regardless of their genetic markers, don't aren't they all? They all should be responsible for doing what's right. That's what I'm saying. So it's like,
No one's disagreeing with you.
okay, you don't get okay,
On
cool.
that point, yeah, there's no disagreement there. Like,
Okay, cool, cool.
people should do what's right, teach others to do what's right. No one's saying no.
Because at the end of the day, speaker, aren't we all under the laws of God? Either way it go, whether we like it or not, we shoot, man. You know what I'm
That,
saying? We
that's my
all got
I can only speak for my belief. In the Quran, it says that God sent every nation a prophet, every nation, and on altogether was 120,000 and something prophets. But the ones who were mentioned were mostly from Israel in the Quran. All the prophets were not mentioned. So every nation became God sent every nation a prophet and or messenger. So I mean, it's not only one nation, but the world is huge. So God must have been able to send the people who live in China. There must be how could they ever find out about God if He did not send somebody from their own nation to tell the news. But the ones that were mentioned in the Quran, most of them are from the nation of Israel.
Okay, well, one more thing, speaker. Since we didn't dealing with DNA and genes, who wrote? Because we know we got Genesis. Who wrote those scriptures? Do we have any like true history and science on that? Excuse me.
Well, the original people to write the scriptures would be Judeans, Israelites. They would have been Judeans. And I refer you to Israel Finkelstein's work. He wrote a book called The Forgotten Kingdom. And he goes into detail on that the Jews, since the king's list that we find in the Bible, like I was mentioning earlier, King Hezekiah, King Josiah, King Ahab, and others, right? We know they existed. And it lines up with what we find in the book of Kings, Chronicles, and Samuels, that the kingdom of Judah would have had a written document dating back to at least the 9th century BCE.
Okay,
right?
so the DNA. So when you say the Judeans, is that E1b1a?
E1b1a and E1b1b.
Okay, that's
Would have
interesting.
been a mixture.
That's interesting, man.
Let me show you this slide. Let me show you this slide because maybe you wasn't here in the beginning.
I'm just saying that's deep because now you got literature, and you're saying you got the records to prove that it was E1b1a people who wrote the Genesis, the scriptures. That's some serious stuff right there, man. I don't know what to say on that one. I think I'm about done on that for now, for right now. But I will.
Yeah, you full of words, brother. Hey, but if you can see on my screen,
this good show, man. Thank you for the show.
I showed this earlier that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could have had EP2 markers, as you can see, and then EP2 would have became more EP2 markers. Then later on, would create E3A and E3B. So the Israelites would have had E1b1a and E1b1b, and I tried to map it out so you guys can get a visual aid to what I'm saying. Right? Can you see that? Can you see the screen?
Yeah. Okay. Can you? I see E3B too though. E3BA and
Yes. So start from the left and work your way to the right.
Oh, okay.
So this will be our family tree coming from EP2. And then the descendants of EP2 will produce more EP2. Then they mutate to E3B and E3A. This is how I see the Israelite population. Starting off EP2, ending up E1b1a and E1b1b.
Who else came from EP2 though? Did Esau come from EP2?
I believe Esau did have EP2, but that's for a different lesson. I don't want to go into that right now.
I mean, that's a good question though, right?
I did a video on it already. Short answer is I believe that they became EV13, but that's a whole nother.
Okay, no problem. They mutated into something, but their origin was not that. Their origin was EP. Well, based on what
EP2, I believe all of them were EP2.
I just want to make sure. I just want to see the consistency. I just want to make sure it's consistent.
Yeah.
We have different tribes in my country, and almost all of them agree that they came from Arabia, coming down to the Horn of Africa. So, I mean, we don't have written history, but that was the oral history that almost every one of them have some sort of roots in the Middle East and the Levant. So, yeah, I believe that the people migrated down to Africa.
Okay, so basically, it sounds like all the nations, basically, all the people that came from Adam and Eve, eventually, most of them, if not all of them, went against like went into their own, and then it sounded like he chose somebody out of all, which was to be the E1b1a, and those that branch off from that to try to get the world back in order. Is that summing it up, speaker? And I'm done with that. Appreciate you.
Well, again, I don't like going into the theological side of things, which you kind of forcing me. I guess that's one way of looking at it. But like I said, the scriptures say Israel was chosen and to be a light to the Gentiles. And like I said before, that has nothing to do with racism. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If you have anything else to say before we conclude? He left. Okay. So I'm getting ready to close the video down. I appreciate everybody that was a part of the video and the presentation. If you didn't get to watch it, you're coming late. Rewind the video all the way back to the beginning and you will see the presentation in full. And I hope it was informative and you guys got something out of today's episode.
Thank you, brother. I'm going to definitely watch it. I'll have to go now too. I'm going to go back and watch the video. I did not get to see it all.
All right. Okay. And I thank you too again, sister, for being a part of today's episode as well. Shalom and peace to everybody that came out today. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate every one of you guys.
Salam. Bye-bye.
Oh, one more thing. Tonight, we are going to try to release the video in the live of Ivri of Israel, Hebrew of Israel. He's going to be breaking down haplogroup J. We tried to do it before, but technical issues occurred and arise. So be on the lookout tonight, somewhere around 10:30 EST, 9:30 CST Central Standard Time. We will be breaking that down later on. You don't want to miss the Hebrew of Israel. It is very thorough with its breakdowns. Get your pens and your pads and your notes ready. So guys, look out for that. With that, I conclude.
Big business.
Let it play, boy.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. I wake up inside me a prayer, brush my teeth, babe, then I throw on some threads. Wash my face, grab a cup, pour me some yum, put on my backpack, then I'm off to the bread. I eat these devils for breakfast, gotta be careful. Whole lot of blood being shed in the streets. World is so wicked, I weep for the living, I drop a free cheer for the dead. All my white friends in my pocket, or either they loading onto this black card that I swipe. Say every time that I drop it, the verses be hitting more harder than problems of life. Rich, I collected 2 pennies from every person that willingly gave me advice. Being afraid can't exist in my spirit. I'm fearing no man but the Father Christ. I put in work with the brothers. We stood on them corners from 10 to like 9 the same night, teaching our people the gospel, equipped with a camera, some posters, some speakers, and mic. Every time that I see mama, she telling me, son, you gotta walk in the light. Christ, the bread of heaven, keep feeding my spirit, and I wanna load, not a slide. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Serving same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.
When I tell you I'm an Israelite, tribe of Judah, don't you take it personal. Plead the blood on these demons, we purging them. Don't entertain Jezebels, we be curving them. Ayy, I got a ribbon, she virtuous. In person, this blue life ain't virtual. I can't forget when I heard the truth. I got cut with that word, it got surgical. Conviction can lead to repentance. I pray these verses encourage you. We repented, now we on the vertical. Judah rising, see Isaiah 32. Big business, nothing minuscule. I picked up that pen back in middle school. Guard your light and take heed who you listen to. Watch your mouth and your ears and your vision too. Hashatan and Shalkani won't finish you. In Mortal Kombat, this war is not physical. Gird your loins up and follow the general. Messiah is coming, that's scriptural. You gotta starve your flesh. The real war ain't even started yet. This look like a setup for a second exodus. I'm trying to be where the water at. Let's get it.
When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Service, same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers. When I tell them I'm an Israelite, it's big business, not miniature. Service, same thing as minister. Kill the flesh, how to finish them. These commandments, they'll sustain you. I'm surrounded by these angels. I ain't worried, I'm protected from seen and unseen dangers.
Again, stay on the lookout. Tonight we're going live again to break down haplogroup J. So it's going to be a fun one. And it's only part one. Hebrew of Israel is breaking this thing down in different parts. So it's going to be a multi-part series, just like his origin of Semitic people breakdown was. If you haven't watched that yet, there's a playlist on my channel about the origin of Semitic people by the Hebrew of Israel. I advise all of you to go back and watch all 5 parts. Like I said, get your pens, your notepads out, and get ready to be educated and informed. Shalom.